Welcome to Beyond the Box. I'm Alex.
And I'm Moz.
We're two modelers looking at what's in the box on our bench
and what lies beyond in the wider world of plastic modelling. Welcome to the first of our special episodes for Season 2 and 2024, the Beyond the Box Mostradamus special.
This is where we gaze into our retrospective crystal balls and make predictions about what 2024 is going to hold for us as modelers.
But before that, though, did you have a good Christmas, Alex?
We had a very quiet, subdued Christmas. As we were just talking, off air, as it were. We haven't even got a Christmas tree up. I think Christmas is very much about kids and family. And neither of us have Maria doesn't have children. My children are all grown up, basically. My son and his girlfriend are coming tomorrow for New Year. But, without that, it's kind of, if you're a religious bent, it has that. If not, it's kind of just a bit of a break. I didn't have much of a break. I spent a couple of days in the shop this week. Quite a few people in yesterday, actually. Quite a couple of days before that, which enabled me to do a bit of catch up with the Gannet.
Ooh.
But pretty quiet. What about you, Moss?
I was the same. I did a few gigs, but I pushed myself to build a 1:8 scale Lamborghini Aventador before
I still think you're mad.
Yeah, well, I was pissing in the wind. Obviously, you know what? I wrote my my Substack, and I basically said this thing has more screws than the whole of the red light district in Amsterdam. It's incredible.
I read that and it sounded painful.
I bled. It makes you bleed. You get a blister on. You are paying £800 as a deal, okay? £800,
which is a lot.
A lot of money, but it's a pound a part. There's 790 parts, I think it is, and I think you're screwing in about 300 screws. Every part has a screw, and that's the biggest issue, was that none of those holes were tapped. So you are basically tapping as you're putting the screw in, and there was a 50 to 60% chance on those screws, when you burn the heads. So you've really got to push that posi drive, that Phillips screwdriver in hard, and basically crimp as hard as you feel and gouge that screw in. Now, some of them I think were self-tappers, but the majority aren't. If they're not going to tap the holes, they need to give you better screws that will cut a tap into that metal. That's the thing. The World of Wayne's World said to me, you need to use 3-in-1 oil. So I was dipping the screws in, which did help a little bit. But it's a challenge in itself. But it was an enjoyable challenge. I did 24 hours of live streaming every day. Every day I was doing a live stream. And then I didn't make it up didn't get it finished by the 23rd. There's a chip on the bonnet, which is being replaced. I talked to them about some parts that didn't fit. And they said, well, they should fit because that kit's now 2 or 3 year old. So it just goes to show you that even though they've released that kit previously, they haven't gone back and sorted out the instructions, because it's the instructions that are wrong. And because it's exploded view, where you've got red lines, there's the part, follow the red line and plonk it there. There's no actual step-by-step. So, for instance, I attached something to the rear bonnet, and they realised that once I'd done it, I couldn't fit the rear bonnet, so I tried to unglue it. Then when I unglue it, there was a little shard of metal at the bottom, which I didn't see. When I pushed it into click, it scratched the paintwork. And that was the end of the day for me, because as soon as I scratched the paintwork, because there's no way of repairing that paint. I can't spray it myself. It's a very glittery sort of yellow paint that I haven't got in my stash. Probably never will have it in my stash. But I've bought some decal paper with carbon print on it, and I'm just going to cut a strip out and cover the scratch paintwork. But yeah, those are the issues I've had with it. But to say you could do it in 20 hours is about as factful as a Boris Johnson speech. It's never going to happen.
It doesn't sound particularly relaxing as a. It's not a mojo build.
It's not a mojo build, but it's a thrilling build, because when you start if you really wanted to go all out on this and spray it up yourself, like put flocking where there's carpet, if you want to spray up the exhaust systems, there's so much you could do with this car. But I'm building it out the box, and I had a set time to get it done by the 23rd. No chance, no chance.
At £800, I mean, I think I would want, at least self-tapped holes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think if you've ever done a D'Agostini kit, which is roughly around about £400 more than what you spend on one of these kits over the 2 years. You will be disappointed in that respect, because it all goes together so cleanly, doesn't it? Whereas, with this one, you've got to work hard at it and glue it. But yeah, it's one of them. It's an experience, a very much a good experience too. I'm not going to deny. Will I build another one? If you were giving it to me, you may, yeah. But I wouldn't buy one. No. No. But if somebody said, "Could you build one for me? If I buy it for you, will you build it for me so I can have it?" I would probably say I'll do it for £500, because it is a lot. 20 hours, 30 hours.
Are all the screws the same size?
No, that's the issue.
So it's not even like you could buy a tap kit and tap the holes before you screw them in.
Yeah.
I suppose you could buy a full set, but...
There you go. You've got one. So this is my little box. I know you can't see on the screen. You might be able to. This is my box. These are all the screws. And
yeah, that's not one size.
No. On the instructions, it will tell you the sizes, the length and the M gauge, whatever it is. But yeah, it's if you use a PH1, PH0, and PH00 for your screws, that's the head sizes, depending on. But yeah, it's not. It's definitely one of those. If you bought it, you would probably spend 2 months every evening doing a little bit.
Yeah.
And when you think you're almost halfway through, this, some steps are quite small, but then the last 5 steps, there's a lot going on, because you are actually, all the sub-assemblies are being all put together in one go. But it does look good. I've taken pictures. I've done a little video, and if you want to go see the video of my halfway stage, you can see that. Yeah. And also, when it says stickers, they're not stickers, they're decals. So you're going to have, even though they're metal, you're going to have to dip them in water. I thought MS metal sticker, you peel them off. No, you've got to dip them in water and attach them. Because I broke one of the stickers. I had them to send me another set. So, yeah. Okay then, Alex. After that, and my spiel about poker, what do you think the year ahead is going to look like for scale modelling? And I'd be intrigued to know your thoughts, because I've got quite a few.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think 2024 is going to be very much like 2023, but more. I don't see anything really changing in terms of, big trends or, a sudden halt to things. We've had the cost of living crisis throughout most of 2023. That hasn't really impacted hard. We're seeing inflation rates start to fall. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the Ukraine actually gets sorted out. Hopefully, over the winter, who can tell what's going to happen? But it would be nice if that actually broke the back of the conflict and it kind of gets resolved by the sort of second year anniversary kind of area, and things can start to return to normal. free up those grain routes from the Ukraine, give stability back to the global markets and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think modeling's been in a bit of a bubble beyond that anyway. I don't see things really changing. I think Airfix will carry on. What I'm hoping for from Airfix is that they apply the same kind of rigor to their QC and their business as they have to the design and release process, because I think you can't fault them for all of that part. The design team, the marketing team, the strategy of the releases and everything, I think has all been perfect pretty much for 2023 or very close to that. Where they've been let down is those other sides. It's their distribution network, it's their logistics, it's their QC, And I think if they get that side sorted out, then it's only onwards and upwards for them.
I'm going to still put a caveat to that. Can I put a caveat into that? If that's all right. It's not Airfix. It's Hornby.
No, it's Hornby. But it is Airfix because they are part of the Hornby group. So
but what I'm saying is that to up the QC, I can see them getting heavily involved in, but distribution, and all that side of things isn't going to change because they're under that Hornby umbrella.
Well, okay, let me caveat your caveat then.
Yeah.
That's what Hornby needs to do, right? And Hornby needs to do it. And I think it will happen eventually. I don't know whether 2024 is the year for it or it will happen through 24, 25, because they're overseen by Phoenix. And Phoenix aren't going to fuck about, right? So I used to work for a company called Danaher, okay? And have you ever heard of Danaher?
No, I haven't.
No. The world's best kept secret in terms of what they are. There are only about 200 card-carrying Danaher members globally. And you think, oh, well, it must be a small company then. It's not. It's just a massive kind of umbrella corporation almost. I've worked for several Danaher opcos. Now, you will have used Danaher technology. You probably won't know it. So have you ever heard of a company called Gilbarca Vida Root?
Do you know what? Yeah, it rings a bell.
Yeah. So the reason it might ring a bell, and the reason that a lot of people haven't heard of it, they're responsible for pay-at-pump technology. So if you've ever used a pay-at-pump pump at Tesco's or wherever, that is Gilbarca Vida Root.
Yeah, that's what
they're well known in that industry. They don't really present themselves as a retail operation because they're not, but they'll franchise out their technology and obviously enormously successful. So Danaher work through what they call a vertical operating company strategy. So all of their companies have to stand by themselves effectively and, turn a profit and everything. And they're very good at going in and optimizing businesses. And the reason I say that I think Hornby will get there eventually is because that's what an asset investment company does as well, right? They come in, they provide capital, and they want to see return on their investment. And to do that, they have to make sure that the company is working for them, operate in their industry, they're industry experts, they employ best practice and everything. And when they don't, they'll step in and correct that action, or they'll get out. That's the two kind of paths. So Hornby as a group will have to do that, right? And it is common between the groups, between the individual things, like Scalextrics and the Hornby trains and everything. So I don't think Phoenix is going to sit idly by. I can't imagine their meetings are just like, oh, yeah, we hear all these complaints from all of this stuff in each of your things. Oh, well, move on. That's going to be the topic for conversation. Why are we getting this? How do we address it? Et cetera, et cetera. So I think Hornby have to address that. I think I've heard rumours on the grapevine that they are changing some elements of some of what I would call the stupid stuff they've done this year in the background. So if that's true, that's really, really good. I think companies like ICM will carry on in the trend that they've been going through, onwards and upwards. I see good things for them. I think Revell will continue to bumble around, doing their old releases with the occasional new tools. And I think we'll have a lot of small manufacturers. I think 3D printing and the availability to produce, almost like that cottage industry of 3D printing designs and then casting those for sale. It opens up modeling to a huge number of different subjects, which is great. And I think it also, I'm not sure it puts a huge pressure at the moment on mainstream manufacturers, but I think they're keeping their eye on it, because especially in the more obscure subjects, that kind of limits what they do. And I don't know whether it'll make them more risk averse or whether they'll just go whole ham into some of these things, because a small 3D printing company is never going to be able to compete on price with a larger company. So, and if you've got a large, and also global reach, distribution, all the things I've just complained about Airfix, which they're actually quite good at,
Yeah.
Tamiya are very good at.
Mm.
So if you've got, say, a Tamiya kit of, let's say, the new South Korean stealth fighter, right? Academy are going to be doing a kit of it. Was slated for this year, it will be coming out next year. If Tamiya or Academy or mainstream manufacturer does one of those, and it's £30, and you could also buy a 3D printed one from a company you've never heard of for £50, you're not going to buy the £50 one, are you? Now, you would if it's the only one available, but if you can just pop down to your local model shop, even if it hasn't got in stock, you can order it, and it'll be there in a week, and you've got a trusted name, you've got all the quality, it's injection molded, you don't have to deal with resin and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's there in the background, it's growing, and bigger manufacturers are aware of it, and how they react to it over the next few years, I think, is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I was because I was we had 3D Gizmo on, didn't we, on Airfix and Chill, and talking about the 3D printing malarkey. It's got a presence, but the thing is though is and I thought to myself, well, surely you'd be better off just designing it and selling it as a file, as STL file, is it called, or whatever. And he said, it's 3D printed. It's all well having the printer. Do you really want to put the effort in the mess that it makes?
Yeah.
So I always thought that, if the STL files are out there, why would you purchase a 3D printed resin kit? You just print your own. But actually, it's a 5-step process, isn't it?
It's not consumer level at the moment.
Yeah.
3D printing, I think, has to go through a few more iterations before it gets to, a consumer level product. We're a while off Star Trek replicators yet, I think.
Yeah, I get that. Most definitely, I do get that.
What about you, Moss, then? You said you've got a few thoughts. What are your thoughts for 2024?
I think this year is going to be make or break for Hella. I think they're going to have to come out with some amazing stuff, because at the moment, it's just Reeboks after Reeboks. I understand they're clearing up the tools, but I don't think that's a strategy. Now, we could talk about this for the day and day. Airfix, as an Airfix fanboy, I have been blessed and love the vintage classic releases. But if you actually know how much a vintage classic kit is, it's about a tenner. I can't see Hella spending all this money on tooling and reboxing old kits when we know that some of them are complete and utter shite. They're not going to get 20, 30 quid for them. And the real money, really, is those kits around the £20 mark. A decent 70-second scale kit will set you back 20 quid. A decent one. Vintage classic, you have to work hard at it, about a tenner. I've seen some vintage classics going on Amazon for £6.49. So Hella's going to come out with something that's going to make us go wow. And the E2 isn't even here. Is it the E2? The folding wing thing?
Yeah, the Hawkeye thing.
Come out. Yeah, that hasn't come out yet. And they promised us that this time last year. So it's been 12 months in development. All the stuff that I've seen that they said they were going to bring out last year, I've not seen. The trailer, the cars, none of it's come. So this year they've got to either put their hands up and say, we are struggling, or they've kept us in the dark and they've been developing tools. And there's no reason why they don't develop tools. Airfix realised that they didn't have the capacity to develop the ambulance, for instance. So they went to Academy, gave them everything that they wanted, and Academy designed the tooling, produced it for them. And so even though Airfix owned that tooling and Academy will not be releasing that ambulance, it was a quick way of getting a 1 to 35th scale onto market. And so I see nothing wrong in that. If Academy's got the guys to do it, why not? I suppose profit-wise, there won't be so much profit in it as if they had actually done it themselves all the way through development. And also, those kits don't come with cartograph decals. So they're probably a cheaper decal that's made in-house by Academy. So, yeah, you got all these things going on. I think Airfix need to look outside India for production. I think quite clearly we were so blessed with that Spitfire, that 24 scale Spitfire, the plastic. I heard on the grapevine that returns on that Spitfire were next to nothing.
Yeah,
You know,
I can believe that.
I've heard no one have a problem with building that Spitfire with short shot or anything like that. Like I said, I built the quick build bus, and quick builds were renowned to be made in this country. And unfortunately, it came scratched to fuck. The glass was scratched. I think the tint on the clear plastic was too dark.
Yeah,
I don't think it should have been that dark. If you look at it, I'll get it. That's too dark.
oh, wow. Yeah.
It should be
Does it
lighter.
have an interior?
Pardon?
Does it have an interior?
Yeah, it's got all the seats. If you look closely, you can see the seats.
So it's not. Yeah, it is. So it's not just to like hide the fact that it's a big empty shell.
No, it's got seats. But yeah, it's just too dark. Which is a shame. I think it should be lighter. But that was 7 years of development. That was. It was all put out 7 years ago.
But how much is that kit?
£29.
Okay, it's fair.
No, sorry, I lied. It was 29. It's now 24. They readjusted the pricing to be 24 quid. But yeah, like I said, I also think that Airfix have a strategy. I think they've invested heavily in the starter range because we had 7 or 8 releases of new starter sets designed from the ground up to be for the newbies or mojo builds, basically, with the paints and the brush and everything. I don't think we're going to see as many releases of starter sets this year. I think they've got a good sounding range now. I think that they've only actually produced the Cromwell in a 1/35 scale tank in recent years, which is the one where they had the 5 wheel nuts instead of 6. They had to redo the wheel nuts on it to make it a 6. So they used Academy reboxings. I think Airfix are going to come out with a couple of tanks, and I think there'll be another vehicle in the 1/35 range, not an ambulance or a truck. Will there be another Ferret Scout, sort of like a Dingo or something? Because I just, I know Tamiya's 1/48 is a good one, but a 1/35 Dingo may go down well, or some sort of Benz car. You know what I mean? American, German, or so I see that happening. I like to see Revell step away from all the other dross that they're doing and concentrate on releasing tooling, and which on the same sort of level as Hella. They're at the moment they are treading water. Nothing excites me.
I just don't think they can. I think they're like an old crack addicts who just can't break the habit.
Yeah.
They. So I have a Revell. So I deal with Revell. I have a Revell catalog. Actually, and I've said this before, they're one of the easiest companies to do business with. They've got good terms. They, give actually decent margins, especially on their offers. They're responsive. Everything in the business side is good.
Yeah.
But the price list for Revell that I got, I actually went through my price list with ScaleMates and worked out, because they don't tell you, even as a retailer, when these kits are tooled. So I went through and listed it all out. The oldest one goes back to the 50s. The
Is that the
50s.
TA-152 or something like that?
I think now it's the no, because that's a PM kit. I think it's the old. Is it the tugboat or something?
Oh,
Yeah, it's really
yeah.
old, but they've got stuff. So I've basically I've highlighted all of those in red up until the 90s when they actually started investing. Like they did all of the 1/72 scale fighters, the ME-109 G10, I think it was, the Spitfire Mark V. They started doing the what if kind of Luftwaffe 1946 stuff, the Flitzer and things. That was really superb tooling for the time, and it still holds its own now. So I stock from that date. I'll go through, and I also do the reboxes of the old Matchbox kits because they're quite nice kits. But I'll be selective about that. But that is it's like about a third of the catalogue is like that, and then about 20% of the catalogue isn't actually Revell toolings; it's reboxings from other manufacturing. So you've got to be just really careful. And then the number of stuff in the last few years is really small. So I just don't think they have the same freedom from their investment, because they're owned by an investment capital company as well. I don't think they've been given the same freedom. I think they've got you have to return a certain profit, which means dealing with all these old stuff, which are basically paid for themselves. It's just the marketing and boxing costs, the production costs, not even a bit of marketing really, because they don't do that really on the old stuff. But that maximizes the profit on those, and then we'll do a few new high-profile releases, and they're really good as well. I've said this before, I think on Airfix and Chill, at franchise work-ins, like World of Tanks and Farming Simulator and Top Gun, all of this, James Bond, they got all of those and they make a big song and dance about it. So I just wish they would take the Airfix passion for the hobby and the new tools and take that seriously, and the clarity that Airfix have given us with, this is current, this deserves to be in a red box, this is old stuff, which you might want to build, but it is old stuff. Yeah, I mean, I just wish Revell would do that, but I honestly don't think they have that freedom at the moment. Maybe in a few years, but I just don't think they're at that point. And as to Hella, I think you're right. I think Hella are... if you look at Glow 2B, they're a distributor. I just don't see them making that investment for Hella to get all of those tools. And I think the problem with that is, at least with Revell, they are looking at new tools, looking at new stuff. They got buy-ins like the Mandalorian. What have Hella got? They got their legacy stuff. The problem with legacy stuff is that other manufacturers are moving on, and like Airfix, like ICM, like Tamiya, and they're redoing old stuff and they're doing new things. So what happens if you've got a Hella kit, say the Heinkel HE112, right? Which is actually, it's an old kit. It's not bad. It's quite nice. It's one of the only, I think, generally available injection molded kits from a main manufacturer. So what if Airfix do one? Nobody's ever going to buy that Hella kit again.
No, exactly.
So that's it. It's a shrinking piece of bread in a duck pond. So I think they've got a limited timeline on that stuff. I don't know. I don't foresee good things longer term for Hella, to be honest.
No, as I said, you're right. See, this is my saying. It's like, Airfix, when they look at what to tool next, they look at what other people have done, and they'll look on Scalemates and they'll see all the say the Bearcat, for instance, that 148 Bearcat I did from Hobby Boss. Oh, that was released 7 or 8 years ago. It was released by Hobby Boss, and don't get me wrong, it's an all right, but if they actually if Airfix bought that kit and said, "Oh, this is what Hobby Boss done 7 years ago," they could see there's a market there because it's not done well enough in 148. There's a lot you could do with that Bearcat. Just example, because I love Bearcat.
Keep making the pitch.
I'll keep making the pitch. And I think when you talk to people and you talk about the Bearcat, it is it's undersold. Like you got the Jaguar and that, But anyway, just by looking at Scalemates and what date that was released doesn't necessarily mean, because it was done 7 or 8 years ago, means it's a good kit. You need to go looking deeper and see the problems that people have had. The wings on it don't quite... They are right, but they don't look right. but I think there's something not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of Bearcats, and at the end of the day, I think Airfix are more inclined to retool old stuff now. If you see it in the vintage classic range, you'll probably see a retool of it later on.
At some
That's
point,
what I
yeah.
think. The Concorde is a classic. I still think there'll be a surprise announcement. There's going to be a Concorde this year.
We'll get to that, Moss.
We'll get to that. But yeah, other ones is Mini Art still doing their really good. ICM, ICM is a war-torn country, okay, and they're still producing kits. I would love to know whether they're actually that the tooling is done in the Ukraine. I need to find out where they're getting their tooling done. If everything's being done in the Ukraine, hats off to them. But is their tooling being done in China like the rest of the manufacturers? They're getting shipped over.
Do you know? I think logistically it would be harder for them to do that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. If it's done in house,
Yeah, in and out of, especially to China, because I guess most of the flight routes, you'd have to take a massive detour, wouldn't you, to get to China without flying somewhere over Russia? Let's face it, they're not going to be kind to any aircraft flying in Russia.
Tooling wouldn't be flown anyway. Tooling would be on a boat.
Yeah, but again, their seaports. I mean, I know Russia hasn't been doing well with its Black Sea fleet, or at least what remains of its Black Sea fleet. It's being made a bit of a mockery of, but it's still super dangerous. I mean, that's one of the reasons we've got such high food prices. There's all this grain that's normally made in Ukraine and exported has not been able to flow as freely.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting question. I think they're doing it all in Ukraine. I think it's all indigenous, but I can't know for certain. Obviously, maybe I should ask Valeria. I'll see if she'll tell me.
Yeah, well, other tools being still made, and will we see as much next year? Are they really? At the end of the day, the thing about ICM is that that even if they release it once, there'll be somebody who'd want that tooling and release it themselves because they're very close with Revell, aren't they? Between them, they've released quite a few bits.
I don't know whether they're close with Revell or Revell just retool everybody's stuff. Everybody that will, can we rebox this? Yeah, okay, and then they'll do it. Yeah. ICM.
Yeah,
I do see a lot of. They still keep pumping kits out, and I think another thing that ICM are good at, and again, I'd love to see a similar thing from Airfix because I think it is a winning strategy. So they released that Beaufort, the 48 scale Beaufort, which is a beautiful kit. They released it, I think, originally as the R.A.F bomber one. I think they did a re-one as the torpedo one, or maybe it was a Mediterranean one. That was it with the filters.
Yeah.
Then they did it in Commonwealth colours. So they did a decor sheet for South Africa and New Zealand and stuff. They've just re-released it again with a bomber crew with it as well, the R.A.F bomber crew. That's 4 releases from one tooling with very minor changes, in terms of the manufacturing side of thing, and yet appealing to, quite a wide range. Yeah. And I think Airfix could do the same, quite easily. I know they do that to a certain respect, but I think the pace of that could be faster. How many times have people talked about the R.A.F version of the Buccaneer compared to the Royal Navy one, which we're still waiting for?
Well, as I said, the first week of Jan, we were told the first week of Jan. So, and then people saying, it's being released, It won't be out to the first week of Jan. And it was a glitch. It was a glitch. So there's
more going on in the background there, Moss. I think that's, again, it's one of those things. Whether you believe it was a glitch or it was other stuff, they still need to sort that crap out, don't they?
Well, just what Hardy Scale Models put on Discord. He said, I paid for it 2 weeks ago. It still hasn't come. And they said, but it was a glitch. They haven't got it yet. First week of Jan.
Yeah, but okay. So from the retailer side, we get every Friday what stock is coming in and when it's coming in.
Yeah.
That doesn't align with that same story. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So, nor does it align with me getting this today.
That really pissed me off because I've ordered that. I ordered that back in January. You know, do you not know who I am? Do I not entertain you?
Yeah. But Moss,
Where's
I
my
got this.
kit?
I'm still waiting for my bum bugs.
Hey, it's something for you. I'm going to say, I wonder if Jadlab's already given that out to someone and they've already built it before even had
Yeah,
chance
we'll see.
to
We'll do
review
a
it.
review on this today.
Hey, I'll drive up the road and pick one up for you. I'll build it this weekend. It's never right. You know, there's something drastically wrong. What's the point in being an Airfix club member? Sometimes, did you get any
Well,
benefit? You know, I'm fully
as I,
invested in Airfix. I build everything Airfix. Everybody knows that, apart from that tank that I built this week. I'm invested, and if I, you know, and I spend a lot of money every release announcement for January, £600 credit card. Blah, 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 blah. I put it on the credit card because I can guarantee that card's going to be live for the year. But I just feel that the distribution has been shockingly bad. You know, just it upsets me.
I mean, in other pieces, moving away from manufacturers, I think things like model shows, I think they started to really gear up this year back to pre-COVID levels, and I think Scale Model World kind of showed that. So I think that kind of has given people a bit more confidence. So I think model shows in 2024 will be back to sort of 2018 kind of status. I certainly plan on going on to a lot more. I want to do a lot more coverage of those for the channel because there are so many, and people don't get a chance to look at them all. So I think that would be a good thing to do. And I think the other thing is just the social side of it. I think getting out and seeing people is a side of the hobby that's traditionally been quite weak. And I think with YouTube and social media kind of allowing people to kind of mix online a bit more, it kind of adds into the in real person stuff as well, because you can go to shows and then people come up to you, or you can meet old friends and stuff, which I think is a great aspect of the hobby, which has been, modeling has always been thought of as kind of a solo hobby, in the past, very personal, private, whereas I think it's coming more into a more mainstream kind of social thing, a bit more like mini painting. Mini painting or Warhammer has always been that kind of social thing, and I think scale modeling has lagged behind the curve on that. And I hope over the next few years it will become more and more social like that, rather than just based around IPMS clubs.
I see that. Yeah, I'm going to one in Cardiff in January. That's the first model show I'm going to, which is a Saturday actually, not a Sunday, I believe. The 27th, I think it is, of January. So I'll be going to that one, which will be a bit fun. I'll record that and do my bits. But and seeing Airfix at some of these model shows has been fantastic. Like you said, I saw them at Tank Fest, and when I was up there, they are pushing themselves into and I think they need to. And like I said, I've been pushing Airfix for years, even before I was even somewhat affiliated with Airfix, being coming to some of their announcements and stuff. And I've always had the challenge of saying, look, if you think Airfix are shit, I'll send you a kit. I will personally send you an Airfix model set that's been produced in the last 8 years, and then come back and tell me that Airfix is shit. I understand that the Mosquito's slightly wrong, but that doesn't stop you from building a bloody good model. Sometimes we are so rivet counted in our response. It's embarrassing. Look, does it fit together with minimal glue? Yes. Do you need to fill it? No. Is there anything drastically wrong with you spraying it and making it look 99.9% of people who see that will go, that's the Mosquito, that is. They wouldn't say that the Bombay was wrong. And there's all these arguments all the time. It's like plastic can only be so thin. So the engine may look smaller, but that's because it's going to fit inside the nacelles, and the nacelles are that thick. Come
Yeah.
on, So yeah.
The thing to me is with like the Airfix Mosquito example you used there, those same people that would bemoan the Bombay being wrong and it's like it's a terrible kit are the same ones that would defend a 1960s kit saying, oh, well, if you're a real modeler, you can work at it. It's like, well, which are you? Because if you're a real modeler, you would be able to adjust that Bombay on the new Airfix kit as well.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't add up. I think there are a certain contingent, and it is a small contingent, very vocal, we're all aware of, we all know what they are. Term rivet counter didn't come from nowhere. They're present in all of society. They're more vocal on the internet because it's what they see as it's a safe space for them to be trolls. Some people are assholes. It's just some people are assholes. And thankfully, it's the, in most communities, it's the minority. You just have to put up with them or ignore them or, just let them do their stuff and get on with it. And the rest of us can have, a nice social time, enjoy our models and look at the good,
Yeah.
That's the way I see it, really.
Also, Airfix employ one of the biggest rivet counters going.
Well, they made him into the biggest rivet counter.
Yeah. Luke is an incredibly dedicated rivet counter. People moaned about the Scout and the back end being wrong. Well, there's a reason for that. It was because unless you did it with photo etch, you couldn't do it. It's too thin, too flimsy. You've got that checkerboard sort of like effect at the back. It doesn't work. That's why you've got slits. It doesn't mean it's a crap model, though. It's looking soft.
If you're that worried about it, scratch build that part.
Yeah, but as I said, I've never been worried about. For me, I've never been worried about accuracy. It's about how the build goes together. When I say it's a fantastic build, it's because it was a dream to put together. That's how I look at it, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's look at Hit Missile Twist then, Moss. And this is a special kind of edition of it. It's not our normal kind of look. Hit Missile Twist really doesn't cover it, but we're basically going to be looking at predictions for 2024 in each category, what we think is likely to come out from different manufacturers. So, Moss, take us away with... we're both going to go for both categories, but Moss, you start us off with 148 and large military aircraft.
I'm going to just put my... Now, Alex is more universal with his kits and his manufacturers. I cannot predict what any manufacturer does, but because I'm heavily invested in Airfix, and I love building Airfix kits, I kind of look at what they're doing, and I feel I'm able to be more predictive of what Airfix are going to release and not Revell or Tamiya. And in fact, I think, you'd be very hard pressed to know what Tamiya's even going to do next. I remember seeing that last year, there was there 4 new releases? Anything military. There was the ambulance, the Lightning, which is quite strange since they were doing Lightnings with Italeri before, so very difficult to predict. But with Airfix, I think I could chuck enough shit for some of it to stick, okay? And my first off, and it was pleasantly surprising what you've put down as first off, I think there's got to be a Sepecat Jaguar in the mix, either in 148 or even in 172. And you think that as well, because most people, when you talk on forums or you talk on Airfix and Chill, what hasn't been done is the Jag. And the best thing is that if Airfix don't do it now, there is some motherfucker who's going to go in and do it. And the way Mini Art's been going, I wouldn't be surprised if they've been looking at doing one.
So they did a Beaufort, which, after Airfix did the 72nd scale Beaufort, oh, wow, didn't expect that. And the 48 scale Beaufort, it's like, wow, really didn't expect that. But if you look at the Jaguar, and if you look at Airfix's releases, because I agree with you, Moss, if you look at how they're going, they've retooled a lot of what they've done in the past. So if you look at, the Vickers Wellington, the Armstrong with Whitley, the Vulcan, all of these kits, the 72nd Spitfire and all the Ju-88, they've all been done before by Airfix, way back in the day, but they've retooled them. They've produced new. I say retooled. They've done new tools. Let's be very specific. They've not got anything to do with the old molds. These are new tools of that subject. And I think if you look at the vintage classics, there isn't a vintage classics Ju-87 in 1/72nd scale because they just put a new tool of it. So it's like, why would they bring out the old one? Why would you want to do that? Airfix used to make a 1/48 scale Sepecat Jaguar way back. And there hasn't really been anything else around. It fits very well with their theme of sort of British Cold War jets. They've kind of done, did everything from the Sea Vixen through to, the Vulcan in 72nd scale and the Buccaneer and all those kind of iconic things. And the Jaguar is sort of like in a big empty space. So, I think the Jaguar in 48 scale would be a real shoe-in for that kind of theme, space in the market, all of those things. And it's, it was a joint project, even though we think of it as British, for ourselves. But you've also got that, and I think because of that, because it was, the French used it as well, it does have more of an appeal to a European base than necessarily just a British aircraft like the Buccaneer. So I think it'd be a really good move, definitely. So we're both 100% aligned on that.
Yeah, I was quite shocked. I think we both, we've both looked at it, haven't we, and thought, that's got to be in the mix somewhere. If they don't do it, I would be, what's the word? I would be very surprised if they haven't even wiped the tables with pictures of the Sepecat. It hasn't been released, has it, as a vintage classic, has it either?
No. And I know some people have said Tornado, which also kind of fits that, but the Tornado is a much more available aircraft in lots of different scales from lots of different manufacturers. Revell did a relatively recent, within the last 10 years, 1/32nd scale. I've got it. It's massive. It's available in 1/72nd scale from everybody. It's a much more covered aircraft, whereas the Jaguar isn't. And it is, because it was so used by us. I mean, I think it was only us and the French that used it. I mean, apart from, when we sold them to God knows who, and they end up in South America or wherever. I think we were the two main primary users, weren't we? So it is thought of, I think, certainly in the UK, as a British aircraft, even though it was a joint project. Whereas the Tornado, obviously, it was the MCRA when it was originally conceived of. A lot of countries went into it, but like the Eurofighter, even though we think of the Eurofighter as British as well in our employ. I think the Tornado is more like that, and it's much more covered, so I think it's less likely, to be honest, than a Jaguar.
Yeah.
And you've also got another British 48 scale aircraft on your list, Moss.
I think this is one that people would love to see. The problem is, do they put it in a particular box? And that is the TSR2 vintage, the TSR2 in 148 and 172. Now, can they put it as a vintage classic? Because in theory, they were developed pre-Hornby ownership. But anyways, the idea is that they were developed when Airfix was pre-owned. Basically, it was owned by the Humbro Hella sort of era. Then it was bought out by Hornby, and then they released the TSR2 and in 148 and then 172nd scale. But they're not the price they go for is megabucks.
Yeah.
So there's a.
Yeah, you see, I think I still think they are in that grey area, and there were a bunch of really good kits that I think don't quite make what Dale, as the brand manager, sees as the red box standard. From the Lightning, 48 scale Lightning, which is a good kit, but I mean, if you look at the detail on it, it's not as crisp as the current ones because it was developed, without CAD, without CNC machining and all that sort of stuff. It was traditionally produced really, good, but not at that, par de l'excellence kind of Tamiya level, if you like.
Yeah.
And I think from that sort of, from the 48 scale Lightning through to, 48 scale Sea Vixen, I think it was kind of about the end of a whole bunch of kits that fall into that kind of grey zone. So but I don't think they know what to do with them. You see, I don't think they would do a disservice to the red box by putting those kits in there.
Yeah,
but I don't think
there's problems with building the TSR2s. People have told me there's problems building them, isn't there? But I would love a one. I'm not willing to fork out 60 quid for a 1 to 72nd scale TSR2. So, and if people like me are willing to spend 40 quid, if I see one for 40 quid, I would probably nab it. Mind you, that Rockwell, the guy wanted 100 quid and I got it for like 50 quid at scale monowound. I was a human tripod that day when I was able to get hold of that Rockwell. And they've still got that tooling in Margate because they can't move it.
Really?
The tooling for the Rockwell B1B is that big, they couldn't lift it with their forklift. So that isn't going to India for a while to be reboxed. But that's another one I wish they would retool. Because even if they retooled it, I would ring them up and say, "Hi, could I have a sheet of decals, please, for this Rockwell? I don't, I've ruined mine. I'll pay the 7 quid for the decals because the decals are pretty knackered in that one anyway." But I think I predict that there will be a TSR2 in the range, whether it's a re-release or is put in the vintage classic box. And maybe that the 148 will probably be in the vintage, because I think the 148 came out fast. I have to look it up on Scale Mates. But that is one that people have been asking for, so yeah. So I say yay for that one, which is interesting because you didn't put down that one either, did you?
I didn't, because I still think they don't know what to do with them. So I don't think until they've really worked something out that they'll do that. I think they're focusing on other stuff. So and the way that we'll do this, everybody, is if you stick with us for a year, we'll do the same program this time next year.
Yeah,
and we'll get 2 points for every one we got right. 1 point for one that's partially correct, and I can see there's one or there's a prediction that is too vague, and Moss has got one of those. I'll point that out at the time. Minus 1 point for each incorrect one.
Oh dear.
So we can have as many guesses as we like. So we can stack the possibility of getting a score, but the possibility is that we could get a big negative score as well. So that's the rules for next year. But what about outside of Airfix, Moss? What do you think is coming for us in big-scale aircraft from
I think Tamiya will bring out a Hurricane. Have they brought out a Hurricane in recent times, a 148 Hurricane?
No, I don't think they have. No. It would go with the Spitfire Mark 1, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Battle of Britain set there.
Yeah.
And people would buy it, for sure.
Yeah. The Tamiya Hurricane, this is what I mean. Qatari, they brought out a Spitfire 132nd scale. I think they would have done better just doing a Hurricane because there's very few. But then Revell have now done it, but they haven't done a very good job on it. So, it's a really. I think Tamiya would do well because I don't think they do a 148 Hurricane. I didn't think they did. So, I would think Tamiya may go down that route. They've done so well. Was it their 148 Spitfire is the best out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
best early one,
yeah. Why can't they go on and do a Hurricane as well?
It's a good shout. I found it really difficult for some of these categories and some of the manufacturers, just like you were saying before. Tamiya are very difficult, I find, to predict. They are kind of impenetrable in terms of what they do, because sometimes they will do a kit that they already do
Yeah.
and just retool, do a new tool of it. But they haven't done, I don't think, a 48 scale Mark V Spitfire or Mark 9.
No.
They do in 70-second scale, but it's just, I just can't work out, what it is.
Yeah.
Some of the kits from the 90s, which are really good, I mean, they're still, kind of current standard in a lot of cases. They still, maintain, and yet some they'll retool. They did the Panther. They already had their first very early Panther G, but they retooled it.
Yeah.
So just, rather than doing a different one. So I found Tamiya really difficult. I couldn't predict what they will do in 48 scale or bigger.
They're not in our country. This is why I think we're so enamored with Airfix. And listen, over the past 24 months, I've had numerous conversations with Dale, okay? And he is hard to read. He loves the banter, obviously, but he gives nothing away. But when you look at how when they talk about their strategy for the next 5 years, we were at that announcement where Luke was talking about he loved helicopters. So you knew that there was a helicopter in the works. We knew there was going to be more. It's going to be more helicopters in the works. Which is why I put down in 1/72nd scale. I think there's a couple of helicopters that is going to be released, whether it's vintage classics or they may retool them, But anyway, but by and by. But that's what I'm saying. You get a feeling of where they're heading. I said that, they need to bring out a Land Rover because they haven't had a Land Rover of their own. They had one in the Bloodhound, obviously, but every other one that they've ever released all they've ever had is one that's been a Hella version, the 143, the 148, and the 172nd, 76 ones, when they bought the tools from a company that went bop. So you knew in your heart there was going to be a Land Rover. So when they said we're going to bring out a Land Rover, I fucking knew it. But then again, the DB5 was was a shock to see them bring that out as a starter set, because I would have thought if they were going to do a DB, they would have done the DB9 or, because they were doing modern cars. And I thought that if they did a DB9 in a starter set, that would have sold better. But no, they did the DB5 and they brought out the Lamborghini, the Huracan and the McLaren Speedtail, I think, or something like that. So, so I thought, so it was a bit of a weird decision, but they did have, they brought out the DB5, and actually a guy called, I found in my spam a letter from somebody who they did the tooling from for that DB5. I'm going to get him on Airfix and chill to talk about it. So yeah, so I hopefully want to get him on. But yeah, so that's what I mean. You can throw enough. So I still think that one of the biggest starter sets I've always seen, and I've seen people buy them, is the Beetle. Now that tooling, I did it for a challenge, the Model Minutes challenge, and I think the Beetle will be somewhere in there. But we'll go on to that anyway later on. But you can't predict. But we know Airfix, because in this country, we know what people say about Airfix. We know what, and we see on Twitter, what kit would you like us to produce next? And you see the list. This is why we had the conversation about Concorde, because they said
you're right.
Concorde wasn't very high up on the list.
Yeah, I think you're right, because they basically at the press day, they discussed what their kind of choice criteria were.
Yeah.
So it's understandable. They look for gaps in the market, something which is going to fit with their existing ranges, that isn't well covered by other manufacturers, and then they'll also do some wild cards.
Yeah.
So that at least gives you, a good idea, which is why the Jaguar, that kind of fits into all of those things.
Yeah.
Whereas Tamiya are difficult in that respect. I think even things, companies like, I've got an ICM kit here and an Italeri prediction on
Mm.
large-scale military aircraft, because I think, at least with those companies, again, they show some sort of pattern. So you might be guessing a bit more, but it
Mm.
still follows kind of a logical thing. So I've got, for ICM,
Mm.
and we'll come to it in 72nd scale, you'll see this aircraft again. But for 48 scale, I've got ICM with a Handley Page Hampden.
Mm.
Now, it's a bit of a throwing mud at the wall bit, but if you look, who would have thought that a company like ICM, or in fact anybody, would have released a 148 scale Beaufort or 132nd Gloucester Gladiator, which they did,
Yeah.
a year or so before. So the Hampden, again, not a very well covered aircraft. I think the only real injection molded one is the old Airfix 72nd scale. So I think, that's a possibility. ICM do seem to have a quite regular release of 48 scale, fairly unusual bombers. They just did the Sally, the Japanese early war bomber.
Yeah.
So I think the Hampden is a good possibility there.
Mm.
And then the other one I've got, I mentioned Italeri, I think it would, if you think casting back to the 90s, they did the MC202 Fulgore and the MC205 Veltro in 172nd scale. They've just done 202 this year in 32nd scale. It wouldn't take much more because there's a lot of commonality between those aircraft for them to do an MC205, the Veltro.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that would make sense. But I fear for that one, they might make the same mistake and make it the same price. Whereas I think, especially if there's some commonality, maybe they could lower the price on both. I think they'll get better return on their investment.
Yeah.
But those are my three predictions: the Jaguar, the Hampden, and the Veltro for big scale.
I've got two other predictions on this sheet, by the way. And I forgot to put this one on because I've run out of space, really. Well, I said the 132nd Revell Meteor, but
yeah, you can't have that one.
Been
you know that's coming.
I know.
So
if you want to change that, I think Airfix have been releasing 124 scales. The latest, the one that they haven't done for a while and is now, you can see them on eBay for £300, is the 124th Mosquito. I predict they may release that as a rebox, as a reissue with new decals and a new scheme. The other thing I was going to say is that there's problems with that Mosquito, with the tooling, and it's only been, I think it's only been released twice. Was it 2006 they did that tooling?
Which was before they started doing CAD. So, do you think they would do a new tool, or
no? I think they will release that one again. But after talking to them, saying that they are willing to repair tools or correct tooling, whether they will correct the issues they've had with that Mosquito when we release it. Because they're willing to do that. The Quadmo tank, they got the 5 to 6 nut ratio wrong. They changed that. And there are issues with this Mosquito now, whether they could retool it or repair the tooling in a way so that where the mistakes were, they could, don't know. This is the thing, they're saying that they have the power now to fix mistakes in tooling. Yeah. Maybe they could start doing that.
I think they've got, I think advances in technology. One, they've got CNC machining. So if you need to take material away from a tool, you can do that very precisely. And then you've got electrospark welding, where you can add material to a tool. And I think that is a game changer in this respect. And I think it's probably what Hella are looking at to go back and look at some of their tools, if that's indeed what they are actually doing.
Yeah.
So I think those technologies have enabled, this kind of whatever you call refreshing of tools. So you don't have to make a, 100,000 or 60,000 pound big chunk of stainless steel. You can spend, I don't know how much it costs, but probably tens of thousands instead to then correct those old issues. That's a big thing. I mean, if you think that's 90% of the cost gone, and you're producing essentially another kit.
Well, they did that anyway. They look at all the cars that were wrecked, all the old toolings from Airfix that were wrecked. to be either made into snap kits or was it like the Vauxhall Cortina, the Cortina cars, and they made them into like these American muscle cars, didn't they? They wrecked the tools to make them into these new kind of releases. So in theory, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that happening in the future, where there's been a mistake on something in the tooling, they can then build it back up again and retool it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
You know. So, but yeah, I think the Airfix Mosquito 124th might be, but I said, you look on eBay now, 300 quid, 250. Don't get me wrong, to buy that Mosquito, I think £150, because a lot of plastic in that box. Is a big tool. It's bigger than the Spitfire and bigger than the. I think is it bigger than the Tornado? It was bigger than the Tornado, isn't it?
It's a big old aircraft.
Hmm. When did
You've also got a Revell kit down there, Moss.
A Revell kit,
which I was surprised.
Yeah,
actually.
I think they may bring out. They may bring out an F-35B Lightning and be like the rest of us. Airfix have got one now. Italeri got one. Tamiya's got one. I wouldn't be surprised if Revell bring out a Lightning F-35B. Or Reebok's Italeri's F-35.
So with that then, Moss, let's move to a point of complete agreement once more.
Yeah.
And small-scale military aircraft. And the first one we've both put down, and again, much like the voting on 2023 stuff, we did both of this blind, so we both did our predictions.
Yeah.
I hid mine, then Moss did his, and I've just revealed mine just as we came on to record. 1/72 scale from Airfix, a new tooled Handley Hampden. So
yeah. It was either that or the Halifax. It was either that or the Halifax. You know?
I actually have, my second one was a Halifax, because I think there's room for both.
Yeah.
I think if you look at all of the stuff that they've retooled, they've done the Wellington, they've done the Lancaster, they've done the B-17, sorry. Oh, God, what is it? The other American, well, they've done the C-47. They've gone back and retooled a lot of these. So a Hampden fits that sort of, it goes with the Beaufort and the Blenheim and the Mosquito, those sort of twin-engine light bombers, stroke attack aircraft. And the Halifax kind of rounds out that big British, heavy bomber stuff. So I'd love to see the two Handley Page aircraft. If they announce those, I would, again, like you, I'd be signing up straight away. I think those would both be great releases for them. I think they'd do really good coverage on them.
Yeah. I get that. Just saying, just looking through that, the Hampden is definitely one that, and the Halifax is definitely there for me. It's just trying to work out what scale they're going to do it in.
Yeah,
I think that's the hardest prediction. So, you kind of know they're going to bring out something on those lines. 148 for Halifax, would that be quite big for that? 148?
48 scale Halifax would be huge.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
It'd be like the Academy or the Monogram Liberator.
But why not?
Now,
they're willing to do 124 scale stuff. Why wouldn't they be willing to do bigger 148?
I don't think it's that they wouldn't. It's we've not seen it.
Yeah.
So again, you get a kind of feeling, don't you, for the kinds of things that manufacturers do. Now, Airfix, I think, are prepared to do those wild cards. I don't know whether that's a wild card too far for them, a step too far at the moment. I don't know. I have actually put down on my list, though, as well. I've gone a little bit. I've got 4 predictions. Actually, I've got 6 predictions for Airfix in this section. 4 of them all new tools, because I also put the B-24 Liberator, because, as I mentioned, they've been going through these. The Halifax and the Liberator both round out the American and the British heavy bombers. And then the other one is, I did go a 1/72 Tornado.
See, that's not on my list, and I was going to put that one down as well, to be honest, a Tornado.
Were you?
Yeah, and I think the Tonka is definitely something that people ask for, but there are better Tonkas out there already, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think, well, there are Tornadoes out there. I mean, I think it's one of those aircraft that a lot of people know a lot about, and it's been used by different air forces, and it's quite, I think, difficult maybe to get a clean rendition of like a British Tornado or an Italian one or German one. So I think for that reason, there's a lot of stuff which is like, oh, this one's good except for X. I think Airfix would do a British Tornado. I think they'd be very specific about it and really go into detail about it, which is why I think it would be 72nd and not 48th, unlike the Jaguar, because it's less of a risk, if you like, with the 72nd. And I think if they got it right and it was well received, they could also, because it's all on CAD, they could look at, okay, we could do it 48th. We've got all the scans, we've got all the LiDAR data and stuff. You know, we can you just increase the detail level on the smaller parts and things. I don't know. It's a theory, a working theory. But that's why I went for the Tornado in 72nd for them.
Because Revell they've had theirs for years, and they release it every year with a new scheme, don't they? Every single year is a new scheme. The
Airfix did have one. You know, it does fit into the, you know, stuff that the old tools that they used to have. I think it comes from the like early 80s, like 1980, when it was still being developed, you know. You've got a couple of other Airfix kits on here, which actually one of them, the second one, was one I almost put down.
The Spitfire.
Yeah.
There's going to be a Spitfire. I can see
that's not a prediction.
It's a prediction. Spitfire. They're going to bring out a they're going to reissue a Spitfire in 148, 172, and 124. I'm doing all three.
Is there a Spitfire that they? Is there a gap? They've got like the Mark 1. I think they've got the Mark 5, the Mark 9, the Mark 8, 14, 21.
What was the last one? Was it the 40th? This Mark 5 Spit 40, wasn't it? What was the last Mark of the Spitfires?
I think it was like the 20s, wasn't it? 21, 22, something like that. Because they got the post-war one, haven't they? And got the ones in the civilian ownership. I think those were the later ones. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you mentioned Spitfire, and we mentioned this on Airfix and Chill. I think the 24 scale, the reason I didn't put the 24 scale Airfix Spitfire on my large military, because I think they have enough to do it, and you said it as well, as a Mark 5. I don't think it will be 2024. I think they will do it. I don't think it will be this coming year. I think maybe 2025. I think there'll be a bit more clear blue water between it.
There'll be definitely, as I said, the Mark 9 will become a Mark. Did they say is there Mark 5 in the box? You were saying
Mark 5, yeah.
Mark 5,
and the Mark 9 was basically just a little bit longer to accommodate the 60 series Merlin engine, but otherwise, you know, the commonality between. I mean, a lot of
go higher than that. Then Mark 9 is they wouldn't go any bigger. They wouldn't go any further up the scale like a Mark 14. They were a lot. Though they had the Griffin engine in, didn't they? Then,
yeah. Although I mean, it's not that difficult to convert some, but it does give the Spitfire. I mean, the Seafire, for instance, they do 48 scale. It's quite a different look because the propeller hub is different because it's narrower, sort of more elongated. You get the teardrop canopy. So the fuselage comes down. So quite a lot of differences when you start getting into those later marks. So much different aircraft.
Yeah. See, somebody was saying, why don't they produce a Supermarine S.6B? You know, that would be interesting. But there was some other ones. There was this. There was the Spiteful, wasn't there? The Supermarine Spiteful that was based on a. Was that based on a Mark 9?
It didn't really do very well, did it?
No.
It was sort of forgotten. But the last one you got on your list, Ross, was the one that I kind of thought about and thought, nah, probably not. But you've gone for it.
I've gone for it because, it could be a vintage classic for all I know, because they do have it, you know. Because it is like it's like a slimline Mosquito, and it's Russian, old Russian.
The OP2.
But why wouldn't what? They've released Soviet tanks. Soviet, not Russian. Soviet. Okay, this could end up being a pretty good vintage classic. If they were willing to put it out there, it's not a bad looking kit. raised parallel lines, but it is a vintage classic. But what goes, it's very long. It's a very long beast for 1/72. But it'll be
I
interesting.
looked at it as a potential retool, actually, Ross.
But
because it's kind of.
It
Well,
was
you mentioned the Mosquito. It's very much like that, isn't it? In terms of when it's made, the tooling. I was very reminded of it when I did mine. Even the plastic is the same sort of slightly shiny grey plastic that they used at the time.
Yeah. What am I going to say? That? Yeah. So I just put that down as just as a curveball, really. That something like that. That there's another one in here as well. When I talk about helicopters, there's another one in the list as well, but I'll show that one later. It was just a curveball. I just wanted something a little bit different. And sometimes I think, we get stuck on what's happening now. They did. Modern day stuff doesn't necessarily sell. And I think if they did retool it, that would be a good little. But I don't even know how you would say it. Is it Peltliakov? Peltliakov, yeah.
Yeah,
Rush is better than mine.
Or just PE2, because that's much easier to say.
Yeah, or PE2. But just say, well, why not? Why wouldn't they? They've done the Messerschmitt 410, which was a surprise, and it sold well. What's wrong with doing that one?
The reason I didn't, because I looked at it and thought, the PE2, that's kind of, similar, same sort of age of tool as the Mosquito, similar sort of aircraft. But then I was thinking, one is the Soviet thing and the Russian current association. I don't think that would come into it. But the other thing is the Chinese manufacturers. I think the PE2 has had quite a lot of coverage by other manufacturers. And it's the sort of thing that, a hobby boss could easily do a quick kit. It's a bit like the IL-10.
Yes, yeah.
The IL-10 and the IL-2, the Ilyushin Sturmovik, is quite a well-known and well-recognized aircraft in the East. So does it fit that area of, hole in the market? And I'm not sure. Question mark. That's why I didn't put it on my list. I wasn't confident enough. Yeah.
But have you actually watched some footage on it? It's a lovely plane.
I've flown one in IL-2 flight sim.
Have you?
Yeah, it's a lot harder to bomb a target. That means so you can fly it and then you can switch to the bomber's position.
Yeah.
But oh my god, it's like it just gives you more respect for the people that did this because you think one, you were being fired at, which is not easy. Yeah. I ended up getting shot down numerous times. But using an old World War II bomb site is it's not easy. But
it's one of them, isn't it? It was a staple. It was a staple for a long time.
Yeah. Oh,
and sometimes, you go to some of these model shows and you see what sort of Russian planes are being built. There's people do. I've got a friend who all he does is SUs, just builds SUs or Topolivs or whatever it is. So. Yeah, so I put that in there just to throw it up a little bit. But you've got some really good ones. I'm loving the Handley Page 0400. That's a good
I put the old Airfix Vintage Classic because one of the things I did when I looked at the, what could Airfix do as Vintage Classics, I tried to look at stuff that they did release pre-Hornby ownership.
Yeah.
So, the sort of 2005 kind of area, that 2000 to 2010 era. And there were quite a lot. Most of the ones actually I've got in Vintage Classic releases have been released at some point in the last sort of 20 years, but not too recently, not post sort of the Hornby era, let's call it. So the Handley Page 0400 is quite a strange one. I missed it certainly the first time round for me. It's a weird looking World War I bomber. I would certainly pick it up.
Well, they did the Heracles, didn't they? They did the Heracles.
They did. Yep.
So it's there on list.
Yep. And then I went. And then I did make a prediction for Tamiya.
You did.
So I went with an F-35C, and that's because it follows the kind of path that Tamiya have been following with the F-35 generally. And that is, they seem
they're
to...
just taking the Italeri's ideas. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So it may be, I don't know whether they'll tool it themselves or whether they will just rebox Italieris. So I'm going to put that caveat in, seeing as you did it with the the Revell. Because if, the Italieri one is due out, it would complete Tamiya's lineup. So I think that's... I think if they don't do
share
that,
the tooling? Would they share the tooling?
Don't know.
They've done it before, haven't they?
They have, yeah.
So,
and then I've got a couple of Chinese manufacturers, both Zhongcheng Yatai, so Hobby Boss Trumpeter I Love Kit. One is a 72nd scale J20, which is the Chinese stealth fighter.
That was and the films come out recently as well.
Well, it's only done by a couple of manufacturers at the moment. One of them is Bronco Models. I built that kit, which isn't bad, but it's like a Zvezda kit. It's a little bit soft in the panel lines, and it's their sort of subject. It's their Chinese indigenous fighter, so they're supposed to be getting an engine upgrade at the moment. So I think whether they would do the old or the new one, probably the new one, but one of them, I think.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, because they don't restrict themselves to their own subjects, and they have done, Trumpeter did a 1/144 scale Vulcan. I thought, why not B-21 Raider?
That gives a good shout.
Because, they do odd stuff. They go out there and they're often trying to get the first, like they're doing a Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier, So why not a B-21 Raider? Now that we've actually seen it, it's out, it's flown, people have speculated and built 3D models of it and things. Would it be 100% accurate? Probably not. I don't think that would stop them at all.
No, that's right.
And I think it'd be an interesting kit,
Yeah.
It would probably be like a submarine, two halves, and then you stick it together and put the undercarriage on, that's it. But
yeah.
No, okay, so that rounds out military aircraft, Moss. We now come to civilian aircraft, which I found super, super hard.
Yeah.
So why don't you kick us off with that one? Because you've got a couple in this one.
Well, I think they'll retool the Concorde. They're going to have to. They're going to have to retool it. Now, I was discussing this with a few people, and I was told that when they did a Twitter or whatever, asking people what they would like to see released, Concorde was way down the list. And I think that's a travesty, because they've already got a Concorde in their range. Most of the people were asking for kits that haven't been done in a long, long time, or haven't been released in a long, long time. So if Concorde's being mentioned, I still think there's plausible. See, they released the first and last, didn't they? They had the first scheme and the last scheme. The last flight of the Concorde, I think it was, that they did. Now, they don't do a 172. That was Heller's tooling. But the 144 is the better of the two from them and Revell. Now, it doesn't fly anymore, but if you look at who goes to see these Concordes in their lying-in state, as I call them, there's hundreds of thousands of people who will go to a specific museum to go and see a Concorde, the same as they will go and see a Vulcan. Bristol's, what's it called? Their air museum with their Concorde, they get seen by 100,000 people a year. And what's to stop people wanting to build? And to be fair, I'm going to lay it out here quite. The Concorde is such a basic plane in everything. Two halves together, bit of an engine, couple of flaps, some gearing, a friggin' 1/44 scale starter set. I'm just putting it out there. 2 pots of white paint, easiest thing to paint. Bit of grey on the. I'm just saying.
I think it would be too big for a starter set, though, right? A gift
No, it
set.
wouldn't. No, it's not about the size. It's about the subject. And the F-35B, we know how well that goes together as a starter set. And that's where I premise it from. The wheels are easy to do. The wheels are the smallest bit on the plane, okay? And but what I'm saying is that from a starter set point of view, there's not a lot of paints needed, is there? 4 paints. The decals.
That.
Yeah. Just saying. But anyway, they need to redo because it's inaccurate. There's bumps in the wrong place. There's a lot of flash on because it's been tooled and tooled and tooled. But they say they don't sell many of them, and that's because everybody that's wanted to build a Concorde has already built the Airfix one and have come away sweating from it. If they were to retool it, and another example of why they should, that Concorde by Lego sold out in this country in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was a fair few quid, that Concorde.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm kind of a bit torn because I agree with pretty much all that you've said there. I think Airfix's question was internally biased. It's not a good way to ask.
Yeah.
And I think the Vulcan kind of speaks to your argument of why it should be done, and that it would be more successful than the old one. Because how many people were buying the old Vulcan kit? It's like, most people had wanted to build the Vulcan, had already picked one up. You could pick them up, secondhand and stuff. And yet, when the new one came out, they still sell. Somebody bought one the other day from me in the shop, the Black Buck one. So I don't think you can. It's like comparing apples and eggs. Comparing. Would you buy a Concorde? Because everybody thinks, well, not if it's like going to be the old vintage classic. No, because they've had the opportunity, like you say, forever. But a new tooled one, it's a different proposition. So, but would they do it? Do they see enough in it? I don't know. So I quite like your idea of the starter set, actually, thinking of it like the F-35.
Yeah.
And you think, so if they did that for, like, say, £30 as a starter set, but a very easy to put together kit, that's quite appealing. And it's not out of the realms of, buying little Johnny for his birthday.
Yeah. Well, look at the kit.
You've also got the other thing, Moss, that I was going to say, kind of thinking about it, I don't know why I didn't put it in the list, but the renewed interest in supersonic passenger flight from the NASA research aircraft, I think, has also kind of spurred that. And everybody talks, whenever that aircraft is mentioned, Concorde is also mentioned, because Concorde was the only other supersonic. I mean, I'm not counting the Concorde ski Tupolev thing, which was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was the only regular, proper, scheduled supersonic aircraft. It was a prestige aircraft. Everybody knows it. It's iconic. It has all of those things going for it. And again, I think the Lego thing that you've mentioned does, again, back that argument. So I think your argument's sound.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that Airfix is convinced about that.
That's why I didn't. Trying to convince them, because one day I will get that, and one day. But they said I did the Airfix Concorde challenge, and people did it, and they all said some people did the Revell one, and they said it was terrible. And I think the irony is that the Konkorsky version that's done by Zvezda, I think they do that Tupolev, is more accurate than the Concordes we've got. And that says a fucking lot, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It's and if they want to be a British company, and we love it when they release something British, we always have done. Why the most epitome of aerospace in Britain isn't Spitfire, isn't the Hurricane even, it isn't, the Eurofighter or things like that, when we think of British aerospace and how far we've come, the pinnacle was Concorde.
Well, and I think, it's also why people love the Vulcan, why people love the TSR-2, because the Vulcan was designed in. Okay, I'll give you a bit here. A guy came into the shop. I don't know whether I've told you this. I've told a few people this. A guy came into the shop the other day, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, I've flown about 33 of these aircraft you've got in here." I'm like, "Oh really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What did you mainly fly?" It's like, "Oh, well, mainly Vulcans." He said, "But we progressed." Just like, wow. He's flown Dakotas and Catalina and all this stuff, and it's just like, wow. But Vulcans was the first thing he mentioned, and it's like, where were you based? And it's like, oh, all over the world. We went with them wherever they were stationed. And it is just one of those very recognizable things. So the Concorde is likewise, but I think in addition to that, it kind of ties in with what we were talking about before with what can Airfix do? What do they need to sort out? The distribution of stuff. That is ideal. Concorde would be ideal to market, yes, to the UK market and get that, but also to the French market. You can get more of a foothold in the European market by bringing the Concorde that I did still had the decals for the British and the Air France. You could do
Air
either.
France, yeah.
So it was ubiquitous. It didn't matter whether you were a Brit or a Frenchie. You could, go to your heart's content. And it's not much of a difference, really, is it? It's just a set of decals because it's white with a few bits of gunmetal and stuff on it.
But people will build it. If they've already built one before, and they probably built it in their youth, and knowing how bad it is, they think, well, I'm not going to do it again. But if they say we're bringing out a new Concorde, and I think if I'm reading the room right, we may end up with that being like not announced in January. They'll say they'll have a knock on the door. There'll be a parcel there from me saying, "Well done, you can build this for us," before anybody else knows about it because you signed an NDA, and it'll be a Concorde. It'll be one of those kits that they will surprise announce. We'll see.
Yeah. I think it's a good shout. You've also got another airliner on here, Moss.
Yeah, I think a Boeing 787 or an Airbus A320 or something like that. They did have a range of airliners. Do they still have the tooling? I don't know whether it's under the Hella ownership. I don't know. But I've got a 707 upstairs, a Boeing 707 upstairs. I think they need to get back into the civilian planes. I think they would do well. At the moment, Revell Reebok's Academy. There's nothing wrong in Airfix Reeboxing Academy. I would like to see Airfix Reebox the BAE 146 with decent decals, with not bad little planes to go together. I enjoy building mine. The white was a bastard because I took 3 coats of white and still the plastic they were using it's coming through. I don't understand it. But yeah, a Boeing in their range, some sort of civilian, and I'm basing my premonitions here off their relationship with Academy. There's nothing wrong with them reboxing Academy. If it's and make the only problem is that when they tend to rebox Academy, it ends up being about 8 to 10 quid more than buying it directly from Academy in an Academy box.
Yeah.
But also you'll have their designer decals. They design the decals, etc. So,
well, there's also the other thing about availability because Academy kits aren't necessarily always available here. You often have to
buy, say, 5,000 of them, and they'll be in the shops forever until they sell them out. So
exactly. So availability is a big thing. People think, oh yeah, well I could buy it from HobbyLink Japan or anything. It's like, yeah, but you've got to pay postage and possibly import duty and stuff. It's not cheaper by the end of the time. So and certainly not easier, because that'll take a couple of weeks. So people forget an internet price isn't necessarily what you end up paying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, on a wider topic of that, I think if you do look at the civilian aircraft, and we've said this before on the podcast,
Yeah.
there isn't really the scope. I mean, Revell actually are one of the most active people in that. Like you say, Academy do stuff, and Revell, Reeboks, anybody's, of course. But other than that, Hasegawa have done some in the past, but it's not extensive. And you're absolutely right. Airfix used to do everything, of course, but they had a big range. They had like the 707, the TriStar, they had the Comet. I bet if they redid the Comet, people would buy that because it's such an elegant looking aircraft, which of course the Nimrod was based on. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I found it really hard. I only put one, and I put as a vintage classic the Bristol Superfreighter. Again, because it's about that time. They do have the tooling because it's a relatively recent release. I think it was like 2005 again that this was last released. So about 20 years. I think a lot of people, it's quite an iconic, weird looking thing. It fits into that same sort of fairy Rotterdam kind of weird.
Yeah.
But holding that sort of special, weird aviation place. So, and unusual for people that haven't done it, which I think is an important part of a vintage classic. So that's the only prediction I made on civilian aircraft. I'm just really super out of my comfort zone with it.
And it's a good shout. It's funny when you mention him, you think, yeah, that's a good shout. You know what I mean? It would be a vintage classic because it's an old tool, isn't it? 1976 tool is like that. I've got one upstairs, and it is a bag of shit. It really is a bag of shit. It's like I always remember Jonathan Mock. They said they're going to release the Rotterdam, and he said, "Just don't bother. It's shit." And I've got a Rotterdam upstairs as well, and I tell you, it's so warped. You're going to be using It's a bag of shit. But that's the if Airfix want to run with it, let them run with it. But yeah, it was very difficult to pick, so that's why I chose Concorde and chose the Boeing. And I said 787, but it could be the 727. They have done a few, haven't they? They had the Trident. That was a vintage classic they released. Yep. And as I said, they've got this relationship with Academy. It doesn't have to be tanks, even though that a lot of my predictions for, the next, the 135th is all going to be either going to be releases or tooling that's based on what Academy are doing. Because they've done anyway, we'll go on to that in a minute. But yeah, it was a very difficult one to look at, the civilian. Hence why, a Boeing of some sort is plausible. They did a 707 and the 727, I think they've done. And I don't know if they've done a 747 because that's a big beast, isn't it? I don't think they've done a 747. But I went to go. The one I've got upstairs is a 727, and I went to buy the decal for it, thinking I was buying it, and it wasn't. It was too big. It was for the 747, I think it was, or something. But yeah, Boeing's there in it. But anyway, let's move on to large military, and you've got Tamiya. Yeah,
I got a couple of Tamiya kits because I went back basically trying to look at, again, trying to get the pattern.
Yeah.
And if you look at their kind of, as I mentioned, they're going back and actually doing a similar thing to Airfix, not as extensive. And, Airfix basically retooled a whole line of their kits. But Tamiya do seem to be going back and redoing some of their old kits as, reimagined 2020s kind of things. So a couple of kits, I think, are due for that treatment that I've got here. And it doesn't mean that they get rid of the old kits. That's the other thing. One thing that Tamiya do is they'll keep producing stuff. So the first of these is the Hanomag, the half-track, German half-track, SdKfz 250. That is an old tooling. It's pretty cheap. And the other one is the Panzer II, which I think probably everybody who's done Tamiya armour has done a Tamiya Panzer II at some time.
It's an easy kit as well, isn't it?
it's an easy kit, and again, having a new tooled one, which would probably cost like 35 quid compared to the 10 of the current one, wouldn't detract from that Panzer II's old sales. So I think it's quite a good strategy from them in a lot of ways, because you've got the choice then. You can either have, super accurate, up to date, probably, with a couple of crew figures with all the detail in it, or you can buy the old Mojo build one, and throw the figures away. And the Hanomag, same thing. There are several out there. I think because they're seen as the gold standard in armor and a lot of things, it would sell for sure. So I think those are my guesses. They are kind of more guesses, I think, as predictions.
Yeah.
Then I've got a couple of other ones. Chinese, I've gone, obviously, Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, I Love Kit. Looking at the bigger ones, I can't do the 35th scale because it will be some Russian thing. Like, it'll be some Russian or Chinese derivative of like a Chinese modern Chinese SAM system, which I just don't know anything about, right? So I've looked at their 1/16th scale releases because they've done quite a few of those. What they haven't done is a Leopard II. And I think because of the Ukrainian conflict and the fact that Leopard 2 is quite a ubiquitous tank, that wouldn't be a miss, I think. It'd be a big, chunky old kit. They'd put tons of bits on it, and it would probably still only be 120 quid or something. So that's my stab in the dark for ZY, the Chinese manufacturers. The last one is Airfix, and it's the Ferret Mk. I think it wouldn't take much at all, another little sprue to put in, because the Ferret Mk. was basically, didn't have the turret. It had a more of an open architecture. So if you just taking that turret off, had an open kind of bit, had a machine gun mount on that, and then they could maybe, on that little sprue, maybe put a little bit more of the interior in, the driver's bits and stuff. I don't think that would be that difficult to do.
I saw that and I thought, the reason I didn't think of putting it this year, because it's too soon to last year's release. I think they'll wait 2 years and then bring it out.
I can see that.
And then, so motorbikes went by. And I think they would. It's too quick for them. The Buccaneer came out, then 2 years later they bring out the R.A.F. The Sea King, the Yellow Sea King, won't come out this year. It will come out probably 2025. Because So I
see that, but I think with I think it might be like a late 2024 release, because I think the Ferret, I think they might do it to keep the momentum, if you like, because
do you think?
I don't know. I just see the difference between armor and like the kind of aircraft releases in that respect. I don't know. I mean, for me, it was a bit of the like curveball ones. Like, do I really think this is going to happen? Maybe not, but I'll put it in anyway because maybe, you never know. So that's definitely my least likely of that.
Yeah. I just thought that they'll give it a 2-year gap. They always seem to give it a 2-year gap.
Yeah, you may well be right.
Because that's what I'm saying. They released the Spitfire Mark V twice now. One as a starter set, then they had the beefier up version. And they've re-released the starter set as the Illuminations pack. In theory, the Mark V-C is due another release with a new scheme. It's desperately in need of a new scheme. The tiger's teeth and the American, and needs changing. Can I just go back to the Panzer II? So going by Scalemates, it looks like they've re-released that in 2008. Is it the Panzer wagon, Kampfwagen? Is that the one you're looking at? They released it in 1971, then again in 72, and then according to Scalemates, it was then a brand new tooling was in 2008.
Well, I'm behind the times. Which version is it?
This one's it's the French campaign version, the German Panzer II, Os of A, B, and C, SdKfz. Is that the
Right.
one you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll go for the later versions, like because the two that they've got, the old one is I think the FG. So
Yeah, the FG-71,
yeah,
and then they
So they
re-released
released
it
two
again.
version of that. So
Yeah,
which wouldn't require that much, right? Because it would just be the changes from the ABC. 10, well, it would be about 15 years since that tooling to
yeah.
get something which is directly equivalent. So
Do you reckon
yeah,
they would?
it'll
Because is it the 71 version or the 72 version that's the FG that everyone builds? It's in stock,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
£8.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, that kind of also covers the point on the Airfix one, right? Because if you look at the Cromwell, and the reason that I put this as an outside for next year is the Cromwell. They did two versions of, and they were
yeah.
released pretty much back to back. There wasn't a
Mm,
big gap between them,
mm.
and there's not a lot of differences between those actual versions either. In the
Okay,
same way, there's not an awful lot of difference between the version 1 and 2 of the Ferret. So that was kind of
I get
what I
that.
was thinking a bit more
Mm,
with that.
okay.
But you may be right. It may be like the aircraft, and they leave it longer or don't do it at all.
Mm. My two were quite simply one that's missing from every single Airfix release. Still cannot believe
Yeah,
that Airfix have only ever released the Challenger as a quick build. I can't even
yeah,
believe it. A Challenger 1 or a Challenger 2. And the new Challenger 3 is due out in 2025 as well, as in the real Challenger 3. It's in its final testing stages, and they reckon it'll beat the Abrams hands down, you know. And I thought that they'll bring out a Leopard as well. But then again, is it Rifield's models, Leopard 2, is the
yeah,
standard now, but it's not cheap, is it? It's like 50 odd quid, isn't it?
yeah.
The Rifield models one. But
Yeah,
I
it's about 50. I think I've got one in the shop, which is a special edition one for the Ukraine conflict, which has resin, reactive armor and stuff. And I think that's 45 or 46. So it's around that. It's around that price. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. But I just can't believe that Airfix haven't released a Challenger. And I can't see why not. Is there Challenger tanks in the Ukraine at this minute?
Challenger 2s. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Not Challenger 1s.
No, we send them Challenger 2s.
So, will I predict the Challenger in 135th? Academy don't do a Challenger, do they? I don't think Academy do. No, they don't. The majority of Academy kits, tank-wise, have been made into Airfix reboxes.
Modern stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I think will end up. I'd like to see Airfix release the Merkava. Is it Merkava? The Mark IV
Yeah.
Merkava, which Academy do. That'll be a nice tool, and if they could bring that out, with Airfix colours. I don't think that's not in the Ukraine, is it?
No.
No,
I don't think anybody apart from Israel uses them, do they?
no. But it's Israel as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a really interesting tank.
Yeah.
Because it's got enough room for a squad of troops in the back and stuff. It's got the engine at the front. It's got a whole bunch of stuff which is weird about it.
Yeah. But it would
But it's
be
because it's
interesting to see,
what it's designed for.
yeah, whether they would bring out one of them. But that's, most of Academy's 135th has been tooled by Airfix or boxed as Airfix. The King Tiger. See, you say the T-3485, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's been reboxed by Airfix, but I didn't know that. But yeah, interesting. It'll be tank wise, I think Airfix are trying. I think Airfix have got to push the 135th, but I am noticing they're selling off a lot of their old 135th, aren't they? In the sales, the huge tank bundle isn't there at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's just because they've got a big stock of it. Whether it was just because the thing is, I think the internet, it's a great thing in some ways, and it's a really bad thing in other ways, because you look at prices online, it's very easy to quickly see, oh, the Airfix kits are more expensive if they're just the same kit, without taking into account, availability and then postage and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So whether people just kind of were reluctant because of the pricing, it's like, oh, well, it's just an Academy kit. It's like, yeah, but those Academy kits are actually really nice kits. It's difficult to know, what it is, whether it's a strategy thing or overstock or what. But I agree. It would be nice to see the modern stuff released by Airfix in the 35th scale. I mean, I'd love that Black Panther, which is the South Korean MBT. I think it looks really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the Black Panther would be nice. Yeah.
I mean, there are a few that they haven't done. I think the KV2, I think it was an old Academy one.
Isn't that a Russian KV2?
Yeah.
They won't do that, though, would they? Well, they do.
Well,
Trumpeter do one, don't they? Oh, no, I've got the KV8S up there. That's the one I've got from Trumpeter, KV8S.
Yeah.
I have got a Trumpeter Challenger as well.
I'd like to see the old Sheridan.
Oh, yeah. That's a good shout.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of, but I mean, not just modern. I mean, Cold War through to modern. There's a whole bunch that Academy did that it would be great to see in Airfix boxes. Because I must admit, I've not seen, I would say, 90% of the Academy 35th scale armor on model shop shelves. It's not necessarily that easy to stock,
Yeah.
So again, that's one of the strengths that Revell, Airfix, the big companies bring to manufacturers that don't have great distribution, is that they can get them into shops easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be good to say. I think that's a good shout.
It's a good shout.
So what about small scale armor then, Moss? You've got a bunch of things here.
Yeah, I have. I don't know why I put Hurricane in vehicle. Airfix Hurricane.
Well, I did see that, and I don't know. Is that a vehicle I've missed?
Yeah, no, I've put another one. I like to see Airfix bring out a range of 1/72nd scale tanks. I think they've relied on the vintage classics for too fucking long. Come on. Let's get an Abrams. Let's get a Panzer I. Let's get a Challenger 1 in 1/72nd scale. Let's get a decent Sherman, not the Firefly, but a Sherman in the range. They've got the Tiger 1. I think they need to push the 1/72nd scale tanks. Look at the list of tanks you've got. Look at it on my shelf of tanks that are, the King Tiger in scale. How about, 1/72nd Greyhound, a 1/72nd Scout, Ferret Scout. Let's think about it hard. They push out that bloody piece of crap Willys Jeep. A starter set. It's a crap kit for a starter. It really is. It's so tiny. Let's get some armor out there. Just looking at my list of tanks now that I've got. Yeah, KV2 in 1/72nd, Panther in 1/72. Get rid of the vintage classics and reinvest yourself and the Stalin JS3. Love building that. Inaccurate as fuck. It's nothing like it. But they release it as a vintage classic. The Chinese one, what was it called? The Ho Chi? Which one would you look at my list now?
Oh, the Type 97, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to see them do the same treatment to the vintage classics, the 76 scale stuff, as they did to the 72nd scale aircraft, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Reimagine them for a,
And
a modern audience.
also, why don't they go down the route of doing that rubber link that Revell use for their tank, like Matchbox do, like an arrow that goes in and put it tight and it's done. Make them easy. Make the tracks easy if they can rubber band tracks. I think that's
even like they've done with the Firefly Moss. The single piece suspension track assemblies.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're buggers to paint though, aren't they?
But if you think about who buys 72nd scale armor, and a big part of who buys that now are wargamers. They're not
they were 56.
So 56 is like, what is it, bolt action, I think is 56 scale. Okay. So there are those, but the armor in that, there are 72nd scale.
156 by Rubicon. Well, yeah,
but that bolt action is very specific, and it's kind of a skirmish game rather than a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So, and it's also people, HOO scale rails modelers as well, because the military stuff isn't that interesting to them. But it's not just scale modelers that do this. So think about that side of things and what you could do with it. From my side, I've gone Airfix as well for the small scale vehicles. A couple of vintage classics. So I think the AEC Matador, a 5.5 inch gun, I think is ready for another vintage classics treatment. It was last released quite a while ago. Again, it's got that kind of dual appeal, I think, because the Matador was used outside of towing a big gun. You've got that kind of people who convert it and use it for rail model and all that kind of stuff. The other one, kind of alluding to what you said about a lot of these things as well, is the Chieftan. As vintage classics, the Chieftan is an iconic British tank. It served for a long time. It was kind of tank I grew up with as a kid. I remember having probably a dinky or corgi metal Chieftan, which you could, which had a big spring-loaded thing in the gun that you could fire matchsticks out of. Of course, you can't get away with that in health and safety any longer. But I think that would be a good vintage classic. I think there'd be a lot of uptake on that as a nostalgia build as well. And then my curveball for the 72nd scale from Airfix is a Ferret starter set.
In 172nd?
In 172nd. I think if they've got of course, everything's designed in CAD. It's a pretty simple kit anyway. To scale it down to 72nd to make as a starter set, I think wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility. I think it'd be quite a cool little thing. Again,
I think because people were saying that if you wanted to build, I get what they're saying. This Walker Bulldog that I've built this week, right? I would say I would give that to a newbie to build.
Yeah.
Okay. If Airfix thought, what sort of starter set tank, the problem is price. This one here, this was 15 quid, but it's a 30-year-old tooling and a 50-year-old tooling. 1969. So Airfix couldn't reproduce this kit for the under 15 or 16 pound market, which is what they aim for the starter set to do. But I'm thinking if they were going to bring out a starter set or call it a gift set for newbies, a 135th tank isn't far out. Something like this, very basic. What puts people off tanks is the link tracks, isn't it? When you got 5 bits to make, and then you've got to do that 300 times. I get that's why people hate, but that rubber band track is good as gold. went on together, heated up a bit of thing, and it melted together absolutely fine. But the
That's
lugs were
kind of
big
why I
enough
think.
to do that.
That's kind of why I think the an armored car. Because if you think you
Mm.
have armored cars in the old Matchbox
Yeah.
sets, which are still sold by Revell under their name. You had the 234, the Puma. You had the Humber Mark II and Dingo. I mean, maybe not in 72nd, but maybe 48th. I think the Ferret would be quite nice in 48 scale.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they'd do that, but that would probably come around that price point if they can do the 35th scale for 22 quid.
Mm.
It's like, I just think it would add nicely. It would kind of tick off a couple of things. It's a more modern thing. It's an
Mm.
armored car. We fit the price point. Kind of ticks off a lot of those things. They've already got the CAD.
Yeah.
Simplifying the CAD is easier, I think, than adding detail. Removing stuff and fusing things together. Scaling them up a little bit so they work in the smaller scale. But I think it would be really nice. Do I think I'll see it? I think I'll probably end up losing a point on that one.
Yeah.
But I think it would be nice to see.
Interesting. Right, next one is the civilian. Oh yes, I did say I think Airfix could do with bringing out an Abrams, a Panzer I, and a Challenger 1 in 1/72 scale. I think they need to. Look, I got that vintage bundle, wasn't it? And every single vintage classic going of them all. It was if you were going to do 1/72 scale, you had every kit that you ever wanted in that bundle. But maybe it's time to think, let's retool some of these bad boys and let's move on. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. But anyway, let's move on to civilian vehicle. And you've picked 3 classics, I see, from Airfix.
Yes.
One of them's a vintage classic.
Well, one of them is a vintage classic. The other ones I would love to see as new tools. So the vintage classic is actually the Dennis Fire engine.
Yeah.
Which I think would have a big pull. I think it's a real nostalgia build, that one. I think a lot of people would cover it from that. It's about it's a 32nd scale, so it's a decent sized kit. It is a tooling I believe they still have. It was released not too long ago. I mean, it hasn't been lost in the depths of time. It wasn't last released in 1972 or something.
Yeah.
And then I've gone with a couple which these I think both starter set or gift set. One is a Mini. I know people will say, "Oh well, they've already done a Mini." They haven't done a classic Mini. And the reason I chose a classic Mini is they do have an old Mini tooling from ages ago. They did the Heller 143 one for a long time as well, under that jurisdiction. But a really nice, modern, but modern tooled classic Mini as a starter set, I think would get good traction because it's a British classic. It's got a lot of character. It hasn't been particularly nicely covered in a lot of kits. Again, 43rd scale, very popular in that starter set. It's nice price point and all of that kind of thing. So they've already got the modern Mini, the Mini Cooper, the German, the BMW produced one in a larger scale. But I just think that classic Mini goes along with the E-Type and the DB5 that they brought out as well. Both, again, British classics, so it kind of fits that theme. And then the other one, which I went for, which was a real swing ball in this one as well, is thinking about the modern cars that they've been producing. They've done a lot of modern sports cars. They haven't done anything like they used to do. They did the Jaguar, I think it was the 420 they did. They did Rolls Royce. I thought, well, what's the kind of modern equivalent to that? And it's the Bentley Continental. Yeah. I think that is the kind of, if you ask a 12-year-old today, what's their aspirational car? that's the car that footballers drive. It's the car that you see a lot of celebrities in. You know, the Bentley Continental is featured on a lot of car programs and stuff. It's very recognisable. Okay, it has the Bentley name, which is originally British, but of course it's German or French or whatever it is now. But I just think there's a lot of recognition with that, and I think a 43rd scale starter kit of that would do well. So I think I'll probably end up losing a point, but I want to put it out there.
It wouldn't put past it. It's like I keep saying, you know, for me, it was the 143rd scale Beetle. That's missing. That was a staple of. I looked at the staple, but you know they have gone outside the box with the starter sets. But then again, you know, you could buy the Jaguar. Was it the XKR GT3 as a it was a super starter set, wasn't it? It was the big one, more like a gift set, really. And that was, you know, and that's a lovely little kit. That, you know, the decals, honestly, they make you cry because, you know, the big decals, like you've got the Jag on the side, you know. But yeah, you know, it's not. They've done the E-Type Jag. They redid that for starter set, which is standard. DB5, which was a standard. The next one on the list would be a Beetle. I don't know about the Bentley in 143rd. But see, they've not released anything 132nd scale, have they, for a long time? Retooled anything.
No, they haven't.
But then again, we were, you know, if they said to me they had a 5-year plan for starter sets, and the first year was that Supermarine Spitfire and the Red Arrows with the challenge with the Sherman tank and the Tiger 1 tank, and that 5-year plan is now nearly finished this year, they probably won't add anything to the 143rd scale apart from that Beetle. They won't get as many cars as your starter sets as you did previous. But still, the Hurricane was a staple. But then again, the Hurricane at the moment is not a bad build. Like there are people going about the Mitsubishi Zero. To be fair, that could be used as a starter set. It's just a ball ache trying to paint up the canopy because there's a lot of squares in that canopy that you have to paint around. But other than that, it was a lovely little build. But yeah, it's difficult to judge what they're going to do civilian wise. I said, why don't they re-engineer the Ferguson tractor? I swear to you, if they did that and come close to how the box looked like back in the day, remember there was one on eBay for nearly £2,000.
Yeah.
They could.
I think you're right. I think it would sell. I think just for the fact that it was, you know, it's the first kit they ever made. It's where Airfix started. And a new tooling of it, it would be cool. People would, it would just be a thing, wouldn't it? You know, I think the Beetle's a good shout as well. I think it's certainly due for it, but it's German, isn't it? You know, whereas the Mini's British, the proper Mini. So.
Yeah, but the Mini isn't a starter set, though. Wasn't a staple of their starter set where the Beetle was for over 40 years. Hell, the last one they released was 2018 as a starter set.
And it was terrible.
Oh, fuck, yeah. I videoed it, didn't I? I did the I did the Model Minutes Spitfire, the starter set challenge. Boy, I needed some different glue for that.
That was a challenge, Moss. Really, you really picked a difficult one to do on that.
I did. Well, everybody was doing planes, and I had this Beetle in my stash for a long time. I thought, frig it, let's have a go. To be fair, you know, and I hand painted it with a hairy stick, so yeah, it was all right. Anyways, I also think Revell will bring out an Audi R8 this year.
Interesting. Why the R8?
Because that's the car of the hour, isn't it, at the moment, isn't it? It's that pinnacle now, isn't it? Audi brought out the new R8. I wouldn't be surprised if they produce a car similar to the R8.
Yeah.
No one does a good one, do they?
It's not about shout because Revell are quite, you know, for all their faults, they're as I said, they are quite savvy with picking up, new trends and that kind of thing. So I don't think that's a bad shout. Actually, they probably do quite a good job of it, and they do seem to be focusing more on cars. I mean, their new releases last year, you know, there weren't many, but there were several cars in there. American muscle cars, new tools. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad shout at all, actually. And it's German.
They have got one in their armory in 1/24th.
Yeah.
But I think they may bring one out in 1/32nd. I think they've only ever brought out 1/24th. I wouldn't be surprised. They do 1/32, don't they, cars? I wouldn't be surprised if they brought one out in 1/32.
They also do 1/25th as well.
Yeah, but that's ancient, and it has to do with monogram and people like that, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, you say that, but some of let's put that aside. They do some weird stuff, Revell, but you still got one more on your civilian car list, Moss.
Yeah, I just had a little feeling that Tamiya haven't done a Formula One car in a long time, have they?
No.
I think with this year's specs, and because Max Verstappen has broken nearly every record going, including being the biggest prick on an F1 circuit, right?
Which is a high bar.
Which is a high bar, I personally think that Tamiya will bring out a Red Bull Formula One with Max Verstappen kit. I think that's in the planning. They haven't done a Formula One for a long time. I think this will be the year. And they have itched at doing Formula One because they released the the one with the 6 wheels recently, didn't they? They re-released that one. What was it again? Is it Brabham, isn't it? The 6 wheels. They haven't done an up-to-date Formula One, I don't believe. And I think this is the year that they will because of what Red Bull are doing. And also, I know that, Japan don't really like McLarens because it's German. But remember, the Red Bull is still running Honda gear. Even though it's a rebadge, it's still Honda, isn't it? We've got to remember that it's Honda engine. Even though it's rebadged as Red Bull powertrain or power plant, whatever it is, it's still a Honda. So its DNA is Japanese, isn't it? So I'm just saying, I've got a suspicion that Tamiya will bring out some sort of Red Bull Formula One car this year, and it will be like, wow. There's something about it, and I don't really follow Tamiya. I just think, look at the RC market and just see where that goes. I think there's going to be because of what Red Bull are doing with the Honda. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they build the kit.
So moving on to naval again, the next categories we don't have much in, which is good because we've talked a lot about other ones. I really like your prediction for this ship, Moss.
It's worth 2 points.
It's not worth 2 points. Go on then. Tell us what it is.
Some Chinese warship. Trumpeter. Some Chinese warship. They'll bring out another Chinese warship just to flex some muscle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a shoe-in.
It's, but I don't know ships. I really don't, and I wouldn't class the SRN4 hovercraft that you've got as a ship.
Well, but maybe we should recategorize. I was thinking naval. It travels over the sea.
I would put that under wild card.
Well, okay.
Like helicopters. Like helicopters. I would have put helicopters.
Well, I mean, a helicopter is an aircraft, though. Moss. But yes, I did. I only had a couple, and one of them was the SRN4 hovercraft.
The hovercraft's on my list too, but I didn't know where to put it, so I want to put it as ship.
Yeah, I think with the with the surprise release of the old little experimental one this year, I think it does go to releasing the full blown passenger air one in 2024. It's one that I believe the tool is still around. Again, it was released a bit ago, but not like in the depths of time. The other one I went for in this one is the again an Airfix, would be vintage classic release, the 72nd scale R.A.F rescue launch.
I was talking to someone. I don't think they've got that tool in no more.
Really?
I think that's one of the missing tools. If you look,
but I think they released it in like 2013.
Or maybe it wasn't that one then. But they didn't know. Yeah, it's a horrible build.
Which is why it would be vintage classic, but because I think this was one of the last kits. Because again, 2013 was post Hornby takeover, but pre Phoenix. It is in one of the Airfix red boxes, which of course now it definitely wouldn't be. It would be the vintage classics. So I think it would be a good time to do that. If you look at the vintage classics, they do odd ship releases, like they did the oh god, what is it called? The Great Western, this year. Which, funnily enough, I had in the shop. It was there all of 2 days before it sold. I was astonished. I thought it'd be one of those that would sit on the shelves forever. But it just goes to show it takes all sorts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. I mean, for me, is a guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good shout. There's something about it though that it's they're not for sale anymore. I just wonder what eBay would price it about because it's eBay is a place to look. If they're they seem to hold their value.
I think I saw somebody found one in a charity shop for 30 quid the other day. Apparently they're not uncommon. Because they've been released.
The 79 release is going for 55 quid. There's only 2 on eBay actually. There's one there for 39 quid. With the old style picture box art, photo box art. But yeah, it's it'd be interesting. It's a good shout, mind. I wouldn't have thought of it, but
and then moving to space. Moss, you didn't have any predictions at all.
No, all I can say is with the Ahsoka being released on Disney, I've just watched it. There's nothing in there that you could reproduce. I think The Mandalorian has been one of the most epic series epic that Disney have done for Star Wars. I can't see anything. They're willing to, like Bandai are going to bring out anything from this Ahsoka, and I don't think there's much to come out from the Obi-Wan Kenobi story.
I think, I mean, and this goes to sort of wider media and stuff, but none of that stuff was very well received, right? I think the first season of Mandalorian was well received. The second season people said was generally okay, but not as good as the first. I think the third season, people were just like, they've ruined it. Disney has, I think, universally been accepted as killing Star Wars, the franchise. So, but you're right, there isn't really the marketable stuff, the kits that come out of that. So, for me, the only one that I put actually isn't a current one. It is Revell bringing an ATST out, probably in like 56 to 48 scale. They do seem to be going back and doing some, reimaginings of some of the older like MPC kits and AMT kits that were often re-released by people like Revell. The ATST hasn't had that treatment. We know that the speeder bike is coming out again. That used to be an old. I think it was an AMT, that one. Kit, and they're doing a new one of that. So I think an ATST would be a fair shout. It's a reasonable size. And again, it was in the Mandalorian, so there is a bit of a redesign as well. The only other one I put as a vintage classic was the Angel Interceptor from Airfix.
Which they haven't got the tool anymore, have they?
Have they not?
No.
Again, because I thought that was another one that was released relatively recently.
Is it, or the license? They haven't got the license for it or something, isn't it?
I think the licensing is the other one, but of course there are a couple of ways around that. Either you call it just a sci-fi interceptor or something, or you actually go and do it. 2011 was the last time they did it, so I presume it's still around because that was again Hornby time, but not modern.
Yeah.
But I mean, personally, I'd like them to do that, which influenced my prediction because I did it as a kid. I'd love to go back and redo it as a nostalgia build.
That's the reason why Vintage Classics is so good.
Yeah,
because of that. You did them as a kid, and you can do them again and still feel the pain as what you felt the first time round of doing it.
I am sure my experience of this is going to mar my memory because having a quick look at the box, it's like, ooh, I don't remember it being like that.
It pisses me off. It really does piss me off because I've paid money. I've paid to get premium delivery on this. And I haven't got it yet. Have you looked inside the box?
Moss, give us your wild cards. Let's move on from that pain.
Wild cards. Yeah, what's the Hovercraft? The wild card. And this, just as a Vintage Classic release, the Come-Off KA25AC.
That is a good shout.
And it's actually all right inside. It looks all right inside. In fact, I was going to build it because I bought the Ukrainian scheme for it, which is that one there. I like the Ukrainian scheme.
Yeah.
And I've even got inside the bottle too. That's the colour.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's the
colour, which I got. It's the closest you're going to get anyway. That's the colour. Closest you're going to get. And there's the decal sheet. But actually inside, it doesn't look too bad. Very little flash on it. What I like to know is what is CPG Products Corp 1983? CPG Products. So I was wondering whether this was like one that Airfix bought in or not. But if it is their tooling, it's looking pretty good. And there's the it's lovely. And to be fair, the only thing is that the canopy needs to be glued. But it's a lovely canopy on it.
Apparently, it was an original Airfix kit.
Yeah.
1983.
But I'd love to.
One of their last ones before they went. It's only 3 years later they went bust. So.
I'm not joking. Look at their pilots.
They look like the ones in the Gannet.
Do they? Very good pilots. But yeah, I just thought maybe if they were going to do a Vintage Classic helicopter, this is one that's in their range. And they could do it quite easily.
It's an interesting. I got 3 of them in a job lot of Russian aircraft I bought ages ago.
Yeah.
So I can do each version of it, A, B, and C.
Brilliant.
Because you can do it with the floats or without, can't you?
Yeah, the floats are brilliant. I was going to do it with the floats. But yeah, I think it's
wearing shoes.
Pardon?
It looks like it's wearing shoes.
Yeah. Well, it looks like little life rafts.
Yeah, they do. Well, I put a couple of wild cards in, and I do think they're real wild cards. One is one I've been talking about for quite a while this year on Airfix and Chill stuff, is the birds collections from Airfix. I think those would be great vintage classics, like the bullfinches, the kingfisher, the blue tits, they did a woodpecker, they did a whole range. I think those, they're different, they're unusual. I think they would appeal to a different group as well. more
Yeah,
like the mini painter, kind of the more female side of our hobby. I
yeah.
think it would be good for that. No idea whether they would do them really. And the other one, which they teased a little, do you remember this kit? Are the old dinosaurs,
Yeah.
which only had I didn't realize this. They only had one release. They were tooled in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and they just did them once.
Mm,
I think some of them have two, but like 78 and 79,
yeah.
and then that was it. And they did the Dimetrodon, they did Triceratops, they did Corythosaurus,
Mm.
Ankylosaurus,
And they're all
Brontosaurus, T
inaccurate,
Rex.
aren't they? And they're all
Oh, they're all
inaccurate.
inaccurate. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm, mm.
Which is why, again, there'll be vintage classics. You
Yeah.
buy them for what they are. They were
Mm.
also done, and I remember this very distinctly, in some really weird colours. I
Yeah.
remember one. I can't remember whether it was the T Rex or Corythosaurus or something. It was done like in a weird purplish plastic. It was really odd.
Yeah.
But I think those would be great as
Mm.
you know. They don't have to be accurate for people to have bought them.
Exactly. Just get on with it, will you? Just
Exactly.
they are what they are. They're a bit of fun, aren't they?
So
So
we'll put all of those up
yeah.
on the show notes so that it's emblazoned there. We can't have anywhere to hide, and then we'll score those next year. We've just
Mm.
got 10 more little things which are just on manufacturers who we think are going to be the best manufacturers next year for various categories, or worst. And the first one of those is, who do you think is going to end up being your best overall manufacturer of 2024, Moss?
I think Airfix will. I think
Mhm.
Airfix, I heard their excitement this time last year before they announced 2023,
Mhm.
and Dale was really excited for this year.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to put about it. And I also think that what you see in January is half half of what is going to come out. They're not going to tell us everything in January.
Yeah.
Um, I think they've trialed something and they're gonna come out and be amazing. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. I always look about investments. Okay, have ICM got the money behind them to release the amount that they're doing? See, people think Mini Art release a lot of kits. No, they don't. They do a lot
No.
of reboxings, and that's the confusion.
Mm.
Um, I'm hoping that ICM still will carry on, but have they got the money to keep? Remember how long's the war been going on for now? 18 months.
Well, it'll be 2 years come February, won't it?
Yeah. Will the money be running out?
Yeah. I don't know. I think if they got this far, I mean, for me, I did choose ICM here, best overall next year. I think Airfix need to fix their logistic QC issues in 2024. I don't know whether they're going to pull that out of the bag in 2024 or not.
Mm.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I would love to be wrong, but I think ICM, I don't see any changes. I know what their releases are looking like for January. Looks
Yeah.
good. I don't see any indication of that changing.
You talking about ICM?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
ICM. Yeah. The next category is most new releases, and there you've chosen ICM.
Yeah. I'm really hoping they'll keep on doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
You know, so I'm just saying. I just hoping that they will keep on releasing the amount that they do.
Yeah.
'Cause you can't knock it. They're doing stuff they want to do. They're not like pandering to what's going to sell the most, are they? Um,
No, I've been really impressed with the way they've done. So I've got a couple of kits to review. They'll be going out during the new
mm,
year. One is like a German World War II truck with a field kitchen. Really, really bizarre. kind of thing, but really nicely done. It's got all of the sacks and supply stuff. It's got decals that go on the side of them. The Reichsminister, that stencils and stuff. Great for dioramas and things, But again, not the sort of typical subject you think of. And the other one is a half-track, German half-track, but it's the field ambulance version.
Yeah.
So, it's got the structure in the back and all that.
Oh, send me the link to that. That'd be interesting.
Equivalent to Katie, kind of, I guess, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're doing really, really interesting things. I think in terms of most new releases for me next year, it's going to be the small manufacturers. I just see them doing more and more each year,
Yeah.
Each of them doesn't necessarily do a lot, although in some cases, some of the car manufacturers, they're just like one-man bands, are doing 100 different releases. So, again, they're small run. They're not going to compete with the main manufacturers. But in terms of the most new releases, collectively as a group, they're doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Most new tools, I've actually chosen Zhongshang Yatai.
Yeah, I would go the same.
Yeah, because, they just have... They've got a massive factory. They've obviously, got a huge production thing. They can just throw stuff out, and they're not too concerned about, I know a lot of people bemoan accuracy. They're not too concerned, I don't think. If something's not quite right, they'll just throw it out there. So, and let us deal with it, which, you take it or leave it, right? But they're still making very good kits. They're affordable. If you get a good one, you get a good one. If you get a less accurate one, it won't sell. So the market, in some respect, will determine that anyway. But I don't think any other manufacturer is going to approach that level of output, really.
Yeah. And I thought the same. ZY. Yeah.
Next category is most innovative. Who have you got for that?
Dragon.
Really?
Yeah. If that Messerschmitt comes to pass this year, it'll be the most innovative. If it comes to pass.
The big if.
Been 5 years in the planning, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe this is the year.
I've got the magazine here somewhere. What about that magazine?
Who's the head of Dragon? It's not Elon Musk, is it?
No.
It's like, how long has Cybertruck been coming before it was released?
Yeah, they're on the trouble is, though, is that they picked this plane and they're saying it's going to be one-piece fuselage. So one-piece fuselage. Amazing. I get that. But that means you're going to have to put the, the seam line on the top down, because it did originally have a seam line on the top, didn't it? It had the line on the top on the Messerschmitt. So you're going to have to put it back in. The only plane you don't have to fill in that one way. I tend to leave the seam line on the top, where the join mark is on these planes. I don't think it makes much difference. But yeah, on all seriousness, that was my... If that Messerschmitt comes out and they do it for the Focke-Wulf as well, it's going to be a game changer for side molding. It really is. So that's why I put Dragon down. And I think if it does get released, we'll all be pretty impressed by it. They reckon it's the first plane you won't need to fill.
I think that's a big gamble. But yeah, I absolutely see it.
They pushed it again this year hard. They haven't pushed it for 3 years, and this year they pushed it because Jonathan Mock on the Interested Modelling Company shared their post. It's coming soon. So we'll see, won't we?
Okay, Elon.
Yeah.
I put ICM in that category purely because...
But then what do you mean by most innovative, in innovation?
Well, I guess it's how you interpret it, isn't it? I've done it because I think, alluding to what you said before, they are doing what they want to do. They are doing, they're doing figures. Do you know one of their releases for January 2024 is a 1/24 scale German staff car and crew?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not something that you kind of just think of the top of your head anybody would make, right?
Yeah.
And yet there it is. But that would make a great diorama with a 1/24 scale, like ME 109. If Airfix would, bring out that as a new tool,
Yeah.
what a pairing that would be.
Yeah.
So I think of it in terms of that. It's just like they are also their instruction sheets have masking templates on. They have the full frame sprue stuff. Recently, and I don't know if you've seen this, they've started, if you follow the ICM YouTube channel, they've got a YouTube channel, they've done full 3D, like CAD animated builds of their kits.
Yeah, it's the future.
Yeah, and it's just, I saw that, I showed it to a customer yesterday, and it's just like, these guys are doing this, and it's just like, it's really helpful because it shows how the parts go together and how it looks afterwards, which order to do things, which sometimes isn't clear from even a CAD, exploded diagram. And it's like, that's cool. Yeah.
That is cool, yeah.
And they're a fairly small company and they're doing all this stuff. So for me, it's all of those things put together. I absolutely get the Dragon thing because, the Dragon kits I've had before, which have slide molding stuff in, have been really good. But having said that, that was 20 years ago. So they take their time.
Well, yeah, but as I was saying, see, it's what's been added to Airfix kits that impressed me. Like on that Gannet, he's left the little tags there for when you to hold it in between your tweezers. You spray it, and then it's still got the name and the number of the sprue, or and then you clip that bit off. Then you attach it to the Gannet. Incredible thought about that. You must have seen it. All the numbers on that little tab, and you leave the tab on. So after you've sprayed it or painted it, weathered it, cut the tab off, which has got the number on where you want to put it to, and bang, you're done.
Well, the other thing in that Gannet kit, and I think Airfix, are up there in terms of if we had a top 5 or something. There's a little piece that goes on top for you to drill the holes in the right place if you want one of the version's aerials there. I thought that's really nice. That's thinking. You can see Pramajit's thinking that because he did the ones with where you can use the masking pieces on the Mosquito, didn't he?
On the engines, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like that's really nice that they're thinking of the model of building it, not just we make this and we chuck it out, we don't care what happens.
Like the canopy in the Spitfire clips in one little dab of glue. Why can't all canopies now be like that?
You might not want to glue it. Okay?
Yeah, but that's why it still clicks in. So if you don't want to glue it, it still clicks in.
True.
Just saying.
Okay, next category, halfway through, best quality.
Tamiya.
We both put Tamiya on that one. Next one, which is slightly different, best value. We both concur and disagree on this one.
Yeah.
Tamiya's
expensive.
Well, I don't agree, Moss. I put Airfix.
But then you sell it, get more profit for it. So,
well, I sell for less than Airfix do. So, but Airfix are good value in the UK. They are not the same value outside of the UK. So I actually asked a couple of guys to help me in this. A couple of guys on the Discord channel and on the YouTube channel. And they got back to me. And the price proposition for a US customer or somebody in Australia or the Far East is not the same. Tamiya is the same or cheaper in some instances than Airfix. So which is why I say they need to sort out their global distribution, because here in the UK, we are blessed, and Airfix are fantastic value. And Tamiya do look expensive by comparison, but that isn't a global view. So I've got two answers there. It really depends on where you're looking.
Wow, you need to look at Airfix and fuck the rest off, basically. I just think, Airfix, the design and build at a price point. That's why you don't get fancy PE and but they do the best decals. To be, you cannot beat Airfix. I know they're not their own decals; they're Cartograph. But the biggest decision they ever made was, if we were going to do decals, let's get them done properly, and we'll use Cartograph. And the value's there in itself. How many times have you bought?
Yeah, but if you're paying 40% more for a kit in the US, an Airfix kit, a Tamiya kit, you could buy that and buy some aftermarket decals, same price. So that's what I mean. We see it in the UK as being really good value because we don't have that. If you're living in Australia, I mean, you just don't get the kits like for 6 months, and then they're more 40% more, or whatever. So what about most improved?
Well, I put ICM as like you did, but if you're talking about the whole package, ICM, but if you're talking about just the models, it's Airfix.
Will it be, though? Because if you think we're talking about next year, Airfix have already raised the bar pretty high. I mean, I think they are...
Because we're still getting short shot. We're still getting...
Well, that is true.
That's what I'm trying to say. When it comes to most improved, ICM and Airfix are pretty par when it comes to their models. It's what's the plastic going to be like? Are we got short shot? Is it going to be, the fit? Is it going to be you could go, I think ICM and Airfix are neck and neck.
I would love to be able to say, though, Moss, at the end of 2024, that I'm wrong here and Airfix is most improved. And that, throughout 2024, we get kits of the same quality that we're getting with the Sea King and the Gannet and the ME410 that don't have, I had problems with both of those kits that I've done, the Sea King and the Gannet. Sea King had the short shot, the Gannet had an inclusion, so it wasn't on the surface. In the clear parts, there's a little dot right in the middle of the front windscreen. And if you actually look at the gate, somebody pointed it out to me when I showed the photo on Discord. The actual sprue going to it has another great big piece. So it was just lucky that it didn't squeeze it a little bit more in there. Actual inclusions in the plastic. So this is just, it's not been cleaned properly, or, someone's knocked some dirt in it or something. And for me, it's a small thing. I used the other windscreen and ignored the fact that the windscreen wiper wasn't on. It's just like, but for some people that will be a huge thing. And then it's the whole getting involved in Hornby, replacement of the plastic and all that stuff, which I understand happens to everybody. It just happens to Airfix a lot. So I would love as our discussion this time next year to be, thank God Airfix sorted all that out. I don't see it happening that quickly. Whereas I think ICM are continuously pushing, those videos, for instance, they're constantly pushing themselves. So I think by the end I'm really interested to see where they are at the end of 2024.
I'd like to know how big the team is for ICM. How big the team is, because
I don't think it's that big, but I agree. It's really interesting.
9 people. Airfix is 9 people. You're saying?
Yeah. Interesting.
So, what do you reckon the best packaging? Who's going to be the best? Well, you put down again, Zanko Yamori, whatever you call it. I put, how'd you say it again? How'd you say it?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I see it. It's probably a Chinese speaker. He's murdered it. But.
Zhang Xiao Yao, whatever. And I put Hobby Boss because I think Hobby Boss packaged
same thing.
It's the same, but the way even the propeller is in its own little cage. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then covered in foam. It's just great.
Yeah, the way they do that, like the fragile parts and the sprue, like they come in their own bag, and then they've got that little piece of foam just over those pieces, which are like most. It's a really nice touch, And they also often have a separate, like, partitioned piece of the box, which has the larger pieces in.
Yeah.
And then any fragile pieces in bags within those to protect them.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really... And the boxes as well. Again, I had a customer in the shop yesterday. We ended up chatting for quite a long time, and I showed him a Hobby Boss Macava with exactly that. And it's like the box, you could throw it against the wall and it would barely dent. It's made of really thick card.
Yeah.
And it's double because, of course, it's a top-fitting box, so you've got twice the box. So pretty much indestructible. And then within that, you've got a subdivision box with all the parts. So, yeah, I agree. It's almost bomb-proof.
Yeah, most agree on that one.
Then we come to our poor-performing pieces next.
Yeah.
The least new tools.
Said the same, didn't we?
We were the same on both of these. Hella. Yeah,
Hella.
I don't see Hella doing anything new next year.
No, they haven't done nothing new now, and they promised it as back. 12 months is a long time as the scale model world. I don't think they've got the investment to build that tool.
No, I agree.
If they had, just quickly, it is the E3 I'm on about, isn't it? The one with the Z wings, E3, isn't it? If they were anywhere close, we would have seen mock-ups of it. We've not seen spec or nothing.
No.
Nothing.
And then our last and least appealing category is the most disappointing manufacturer. Yeah. And we agree on this one as well.
Wow, yeah. It's obvious, isn't it?
Revell.
Oh, really? You put Revell, did you? Okay. Yeah, Revell too.
Did you put Airfix? No?
There's no Bearcat again. No fucking Bearcat. No
Bearcat, no Concorde. What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? No Challenger? No.
No, I think Revell, and the reason I put most disappointing is because they've shown that they can do good kits, the Mandalorian N1 Starfighter, but they still, they do a very small amount of new tools. Two, there's no transparency with reboxing other people's kits, old kits, kits they found down the back of the sofa. They still do some really weird things with pricing, like the My First Diorama old Matchbox kits, which, cost them nothing at this point, absolutely nothing. And they're charging 20 quid for. Money for old rope doesn't really cover that. And then even with the new kits, it was Matt, I think, wasn't it, that showed us a photo of the bottom of the outside of the hull, and they're printing the Revell logo, copyright 2023, on the outside of the plastic.
I know.
What the hell?
I know.
Come on, guys. That's something you did in the 60s, maybe, if people complained about it. In 2023, it's astonishing.
Do Revell make their kits in Germany? As all the modelling and everything is done in Germany?
I think a lot of the injection moulding is done in Poland.
Oh. Interesting. Italeri do all theirs in-house, don't they? They've got their own factory, same as Edard. They've got their own factory, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's another thing I was going to say. Was throughout this whole list, none of us have mentioned Edard.
No, Edard. I think they will do some decent stuff. Interestingly, again, the customer I was talking to yesterday, we must have been talking for almost an hour, which again is one of the great highlights of having a shop.
Yeah.
Mentioned that they wanted to push the boat out on a kit, and they got some Edward photo etch, and none of it fitted. They had to sand pieces till they were almost translucent for the bits to fit in, and then there were gaps and stuff, which is something I've heard recently from others using Edward photo etch. And I don't know whether that's, a new thing, because the Edward photo etch that I remember using a lot of didn't have that issue. So whether there is just a design or a QC issue there or something, I don't know. I think a lot of the detail that photo etch used to occupy has been overtaken by resin, and that again is being replaced or at least accentuated by 3D printing. And whether that's changing the market, I don't know. So, Edward, they'll do some some stuff. It'll be good, but I don't think they're... I don't want to say it's not special, but it doesn't feel special. If that makes sense.
The other one I'm looking out for is IBG. I think we'll see some good stuff coming from them this year, but it's not on the same category as what we've done here. You know, we basically we're talking about the main four, aren't we?
Yeah, with some added bits in from a few others. I mean, we haven't mentioned Italeri much because they're almost... I mean, I think of Italeri a bit like Hella back in the day. They're kind of almost like a second tier. You got like your Tamiya, Revell, and Airfix as like the big hitters. And obviously in Japan, you've also got Bandai. We haven't mentioned Bandai, you know, which will produce more tools probably than all of those that we've just mentioned. But it's mainly big Japanese imaginary space robots. So.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not, and you just think if Bandai turned around and said, "That's it, we've done our full of anime and all this Gundam and everything. Let's do World War II." They would wipe the floor. You know what I mean? It'd be like, just turn the lights out when you go there, Revell. And like,
the majority of it, you wouldn't need cement. Yeah.
No.
I'll tell you what, though, have you ever looked at the Bandai Spirits website?
I saw it.
It's a very strange place.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. There's the only thing about Bandai is the accuracy. Would it be as accurate because they've been so used to fantasy stuff where they can make it up as they go along? Would they be able to be as accurate on a Mosquito?
Oh no. Having personal experience of built a Bandai Gundam on live stream, and then to be told that wasn't Gundam, that was actually a different type of imaginary Japanese space robot. I can tell you, they count rivets on imagination stuff just as much.
Wow, fuck them. Honestly, you know, we do this podcast every time, and we look at it, don't we? And we come to this conclusion that every model kit manufacturer has their merits, and they have their failings. But at the end of the day, you just got to love Airfix, so just run with it. No, I'm joking. But that was a conclusion. But no, you build what you want to build, and you will enjoy what you want to do. Like I said, I've built some Italeri kits in the past, and that plastic's been bloody awful. But I've had to use because that's the only one who's done, you know, the truck or whatever. And I've got to say, you know, as an Airfix fanboy, I thoroughly enjoy building that Tamiya tank, and so I'm going to be building the honey, what's it called, the Stuart Honey this week, as well as that boat from ICM that I did a review on this week. So, you know, as well as that Puka scale model as well, I've got to finish that one. So I've got 3 kits on the bouts I'm going to do. I'm taking turns doing it, but as I said, at the end of the day, you build what you want to build. You'll enjoy it. You'll be a Tamiya fan, you can be an Airfix fan, but if they don't do it, you have to use theirs, isn't it? You know, simple as. So it's, I think we're going to see a really good year this year. I think we're going to see a better year. The only thing is, though, is that the reason we always talk about Airfix is because Airfix put themselves out there. Revell don't, Hella don't. You know, if only they did. Tamiya, they say very little, but because people were talking about Airfix, people are going to notice Airfix more. I think their social media is absolutely fantastic. So
yeah, I agree. I think, you know, we've said it before on Airfix and Chill and stuff. They're the only company that really have engaged social media. And I would say even understand social media. Even, you know, Revell demonstrated they don't by doing a WhatsApp group that you can't post to. I think the only other one that I would say is ICM, you know, having their own YouTube channel, starting to do the YouTube build videos and things. They do reach out to creators as well. I think they're on that curve. I just don't think they've got the scope that Airfix have. You know, they don't have a dedicated media person, for instance. But maybe they'll get to that. You know, we'll see. Yes, well, we'll see in a year's time. We'll tot up who gets the most points in a year's time. In 12 months, we'll see if Mostradamus lives up to his name, or whether I'll have to come up with some sort of mystic man.
Honestly, no, I think it's just, I think it's just it is what it is. We throw enough out there. We're going to be right, and to be fair, I've been right on 2 occasions, but 3 occasions actually.
That's why you get minus points for all the stuff that you throw out that doesn't stick, Moss.
Listen, Mystic Meg and Russell Grant's been doing it for years.
So with that from Mystic Man and Mostradamus, I think it's only our time to wish everybody a happy 2024, isn't it?
Yeah, and we'll see you next year, most definitely. Thank you very much for joining us on this podcast.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye. Now, that's all from this episode of Beyond the Box. We hope you've enjoyed spending the time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next instalment.
If you did enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a review on whatever platform you listen to this on and telling other modelers about us.
If you'd like to see more from us and our modelling, please check out our YouTube channels of Man's Model Moments and Moz 6510 Models. Just search for them on YouTube.
All the details are in the show notes, so until next time,
Goodbye.